Since the first year of the beginning of the human era, the world has been teeming with monsters. Huge iron monsters do not cease to produce their invasions. However, people who have been granted the greatest power have awakened. Millions of reverent glances are directed towards the heroes when they go out to fight. There are also people who can feel the force but are not able to awaken. They are recruited for a carefree life. In addition to gifted individuals, there are also ordinary residents. Every day they immerse themselves in the virtual world and discover a lot of new things. This is exactly what Yunmu, a high school student, belongs to. Going to the virtual window, the guy decided to get acquainted with the game novelty. Lee hadn't met her before. Suddenly, an offer to help out one beauty popped up. The guy immediately began to do it. At the same time, a motorcade was moving along the street, accompanying the awakened one's car. One guy in a hood loudly announces this news. He was so carried away that he didn't notice how he hooked Yunmu, but he didn't even feel it. People began to crowd in the streets to look at the awakened one. He's driving in a white car. Armored vehicles are moving in front and behind. There are policemen on the sides. The window in the car of the main person is ajar, so the enthusiastic exclamations of the audience, who were lucky to see the awakened one with their own eyes, began to be heard. Distracted from the game, Lee turned around and looked at what was happening. He doesn't understand what people find in these awakened ones. Having never found interest in what is happening, the guy decides to continue playing. Lee's whole face lit up with a smile in anticipation of the game. The picture becomes brighter as if it is illuminated by sunlight, which makes it impossible to see the face of the virtual heroine. To start the game, they suggest putting your palm on a dark blue circle, in the middle of which a hand is drawn with a blue glow around. Lee decides not to hesitate and places his palm on the indicated place. As soon as he touches the mark, everything is flooded with a bright blue light that resembles lightning. The guy begins to feel his hand being pulled into something unknown. Sweat breaks out on Lee's face, but the guy doesn't take his hand away. Squinting, he watches what happens next. Suddenly, it is reported that the download is completed, and the shadow system is officially launched. The silhouette of the girl is becoming more and more distinct. She holds out her hand to Lee. The whole space is illuminated by the glow even brighter. Lee doesn't quite understand what exactly is happening to him. The guy tries to squint and see at least something, but the light does not give him the opportunity to do it fully. Suddenly, the silhouette of Lee's shadow appears. The guy squats down and notices that something is moving in his shadow. Something like a man was beginning to take shape. It's something of a dark blue shade. Lee still can't believe it came out of his shadow. The silhouette is much larger than the guy, so it looks quite intimidating. Suddenly, a notification pops up that the shadow materialization is complete. Lee is congratulated on inheriting this system. By completing the tasks proposed by the system, he will receive experience and rewards. The shadow can only be seen when in use. With its help, you can fight and perform the proposed tasks. The evolved shadow makes the guy very happy. He can manage it safely. The shadow is a reward for saving the girl. Lee does not miss the opportunity to fully test the possibilities of such a kind of brainchild. The guy immediately dissolves into thoughts of beautiful girls. Such thoughts prompted him to look through the list of proposed tasks. One of the tasks is guiding the shadow to deal with an ant in the garden. This task seems very simple to the guy. Lee communicates with his shadow and takes full control over it. They become one. This makes the guy very happy, and he directs her forward. Suddenly, the shadow shrinks to ant size in 2 counts. Lee does not expect such a turn of events. All he has to do is just watch what is happening. A battle begins between the shadow and the ant. The ant is much weaker, so there is no doubt who will get the victory. Lee sat down on the ground, trying to see what was happening. He is surprised that the shadow can fight in this way. The task deal with the ant in the garden has been successfully completed, so Lee is offered to pick up the earned reward. This cannot but please, so the guy does not want to delay. A stream of energy descends on him, which is illuminated by a pleasant blue glow. Lee doesn't quite understand what's happening to him. A little later, a blue flame lights up in his hands. The guy looks at his hand with surprise and misunderstanding. He begins to feel the energy of the flow. This energy begins to spread throughout his body. The sensations are quite unusual. Lee had never even dared to dream of awakening before. It was something on the verge of impossible for him. But now the feeling is starting to appear that he gets a chance. The guy recovers quickly. Everything is trembling inside. He feels confident and energized. Now Lee is absolutely sure that he felt the energy of the flow and that he has a chance to awaken. Immersed in his thoughts, Lee runs home. He doesn't notice anything around him. People look around and whisper. They seem to know about something. When Lee runs up to his house, he doesn't even notice that the house is surrounded by troops. The guy runs onto the porch and heads for the entrance. Having opened the door, the guy is going to find his mother as soon as possible and tell her everything. But an unexpected cry from his mother brings him to his senses. The woman is surrounded by soldiers. They detained her and did not allow her to approach her son. She just wants him to run away as soon as possible. Lee stood rooted to the spot and could not move. He began to gradually realize that they were awakened. Lee's mom screams for her son to run away, but it's too late. They approach him from behind and close his mouth so that the guy does not make unnecessary sounds. The awakened ones are not going to let anyone go. A man in sunglasses and a military beret lays Lee on the floor. This angered the guy. He starts shouting, "What right do they have to break into their house in such a brazen way?" A man with glasses begins to tell that during the mission, Lee's father deserted, which caused the entire squad to be destroyed. Now a group of awakened ones is investigating. Lee can't believe that this happened to his father, as he always protected people. He never spared himself. Therefore, the guy does not believe that his father could have escaped. The man explains that now there is a normal investigation, so if it's true, then Lee doesn't need to worry so much about it. But the mother is still forced to go with the group. As soon as Lee hears this, his whole body shivers with anger. Suddenly the guy abruptly jumped to his feet, grabbed the gun from the chief. The man in the beret does not immediately understand what is happening. Lee points the gun at the captain. The guy is sure that his father cannot be a traitor. It seems to him that something is not right here. Lee is ordered to lower the gun. This gun can only be used by a person with flow energy. The group is not yet aware of the new abilities of the guy. The guy gets even angrier. His whole body begins to fill with the energy of the flow. This energy leads to the operation of the transistor. Now the team members are beginning to feel the seriousness of the problem. They are calling for Lee to be stopped by someone. But it's too late. The energy reaches such an extent that the entire space is illuminated with the brightest light. A bullet flies out of the gun. Charged with the energy of the flow, she flies exactly in the direction of the man in the beret and glasses. He stands motionless. It seems as if nothing scares him. Only the glow produced by the power of energy is reflected in the glasses of his glasses. In an instant, the bullet hits the man. From such force, he is thrown back. The beret flies off the soldier's head, and the cigar falls out of his mouth. Lee tries to collect his thoughts. He had just felt the full power of his power on his own. But to his surprise, the man remained unshaken in his emotions. In his hands he held a smoking bullet that had been fired a few seconds ago. But it seems like an eternity has passed. The soldier did not think that such a guy could have the energy of a stream. Now they have every right to detain him. The man moves towards Lee. He's not going to back down and let his parents be taken away. The mother understands that now the best thing for her son will be to obey the military. But Lee doesn't want to hear it. He is overwhelmed with emotions. The woman says that she and her father did not know that he had flow energy. She is sorry they won't see Lee grow up. She instructs him to keep working hard. She doesn't doubt her son's abilities at all. The captain believes that Lee's father is innocent, but they still have points that need to be clarified. The guy's eyes filled with tears. An impenetrable lump rose in my throat. But he keeps listening. The captain says that Lee needs to wake up as soon as possible if he wants to help his parents. The front door swings open, illuminating the room with daylight, and the soldier goes outside. Lee only has a week. Therefore, he is going to prepare for everything as soon as possible. The awakened ones will be tested next Friday. This test takes place once a year. The guy can't fail it. He goes to the shelf with books and takes out the one that is needed. Lee asks the system how much experience is needed to wake up. It turns out 100,000 units of experience. He can also conduct a reverse exchange of flow energy for experience. The guy is wondering if he will be able to wake up if he copes with 100,000 ants in a week. The system can also work in automatic mode, and the user does not need to monitor it all the time. Lee decides to start automatic mode. At this moment, a shadow forms and begins to carry out the assignment. The guy understands that you can't rely only on the shadow. He has to work on the practice all this week. The more flow energy he has, the higher the chance of his awakening. The manual that Lai took is called 100 Ways to Feel the Energy of Lai Zhongmenzeng. Suddenly, the guy is transported into memories of his past, when his father promised to protect his son. This memory gives confidence and strength to Lee. Now it's his turn to protect his father. 7 days pass. The weather is clear and warm. The 16th high school is located in the city of Happy Wind. In Group 3 for 3 years, students listen carefully to their teachers' recommendations. Today they have to greet important guests who arrive before the Dragon Leap stream check. If they are not awakened, the teacher hopes that the students will continue to work hard for the benefit of society. If they can feel the energy of the flow, they will be able to join the army, where they will have to fight monsters and become great guards. The teacher draws a fraction on the blackboard and circles it, saying that if the students are awakened, they will become revered heroes on whom hundreds of thousands will rely. The teacher assures everyone that he will be proud of all students in any case, despite the fact that only 1 out of 10,000 becomes awakened. Suddenly there is a knock in the audience. Lee enters. He overslept. The clothes show that the guy was going to hurry. Lee apologizes for being late and tries to catch his breath. Beads of sweat are running down his face. Everything points to the fact that the guy tried to do everything to reduce the time of his lateness. In one of the spacious rooms of the school, a scheduled check of the availability of flow energy is carried out. Students line up and wait for the results. Lee barely makes it to the last group. Exhausted, he sits down on a chair and waits for his turn. There are not so many people in the hall. Lee suggested that this was due to the fact that the rest of the students had given up on passing the test. The guy's gaze falls on Kyan Fei, the son of the head of the Happy Wind City Company. Kyan is accompanied by 2 friends. The guy starts a dialogue with an unfriendly orientation. He says the whole town knows about Lee's father's crime. Kyan is unhappy with the guy's presence, so he starts trying to hurt Lee by calling him a clown and emphasizing imposture. Lee's patience is beginning to run out, but he is still trying to control himself, listening to the harsh statements of opponents. Suddenly someone's voice rang out. One guy stands up for Lee. His name is Zhang Kai. Lee, Yunmu and Zhang are best friends. The guy puts Kyan Fei in his place, noticing that he still can't accept that his ex-girlfriend is now with Yunmu. Zhang goes on to say that quite recently, they all crawled on their knees in front of Lee, and when he had problems in the family, they came to gloat over him. Fei grumbles and leaves. His ego is hurt, but he tries not to show it. Kai is glad that in addition to protecting his friend, he was also able to speak out. For a while, Zhang watches contentedly as a group of bullies leaves. Lee is very grateful to his friend. He asks about Yunmu's father. Lee says that in general everything is fine and an investigation is underway at the moment. While Yunmu is talking to his best friend, a girl with her hair in a ponytail appears nearby. She calls out to Lee. This is Lin Lai, the goddess of the school and also Yunmu's girlfriend. She, with a little shyness, asks Lee if he came specifically to watch her take the exam. Zhang immediately runs away so as not to disturb them. He decides to take the cue for now. Lee tells the girls that he also came to take the test. The girl is a little worried because she has heard about Yunmu's father's case. The girl decides to say something to the guy now. Maybe this is not the best time for such news, but Lin still decides. A few days ago, she felt the energy of the flow. Hearing this, Lee feels a perspiration appear on his forehead. There was a slight pause. Yunmu decides to ask what it means anyway. He doesn't know what to expect. The girl says that it may sound selfish, but she still wants to fulfill her old dream and see the world. She doesn't want to let go of any chance. Lee stopped hearing everything around him. He doesn't care about anything anymore. There are tears in Lin's eyes. She apologizes and waits for her friend's reaction. Lee grins and thinks about his father's name, which gave him fake friends. Once they had pure childish love, while the position of their families was equal. Now everything is different. All this time Lee is immersed in his thoughts. He looks at the girl and understands that it is impossible to say what is in the heart of another person. From the very beginning, he did not want to look soberly at this world. Lin called out to him again. Lee has already decided everything for himself. He turns around and leaves, wishing the girl to pass today's exam successfully. Lee walks along the line without noticing his friend. The same, on the contrary, immediately drew attention to a friend. Zhang calls out to Yunmu and informs him that the place in the queue is occupied. The guy tries to attract attention and waves his hand. Lee walks purposefully to the stage where the abilities are being tested. It's Kyan Fei's turn, who has been looking forward to this moment. Yunmu approaches and violently throws the student away. The one, not understanding anything, flies away. Once on the floor, Fei regains consciousness. He is enraged by Lee's insolence. He is indignant. Yunmu can't hear anyone. Kyan Fei is starting to feel uncomfortable. He continues to sit on the floor and is enveloped in bewilderment. Lee confidently climbs onto the stage, approaches the interactive stand and puts his hand on it. All around will be illuminated with a bright light. The screen emits pinkish rays. This light blinded everyone around for a short time. Lin and the others watch in stunned amazement. The girl can't believe that this is happening in reality. The surrounding people begin to realize what is happening. Amazed, they begin to realize that Lee is indeed awakened. Illuminated with pink light, he is overwhelmed with confidence. His face takes on a slightly wild look. Zhang runs up to Lee and enthusiastically hugs his friend. This brings Lee down to earth. Suddenly, a man appears in the crowd who says that now no one will look down on Lee. A large man in glasses and a suit approached the guy and handed him an unusual box. Now this sign of the awakened belongs to Lee. From now on, he will have special rights inherent in Fluxers. After that, the man leaves. Jang approaches Yunmu and picks up the box. He hugs his friend so that he can barely stand on his feet. Lin wonders what kind of man he was. Lai asks Jang to let him go at last. Yunmu turns to her friend and watches her actions. The girl comes closer and asks him again. Her face expresses excitement and interest at the same time. She wants to know everything in more detail, but the guy is not in a hurry to satisfy her curiosity. Then he frees himself from his friend's embrace, looks at one point and thinks how best to answer Lin. The guy scratches the back of his head and asks for a little time to think about everything. Jang, by his gestures, expresses his support. Then Lee says that it might sound selfish. He moves forward and passes by the girl, while not paying attention to her. Going further, he repeats exactly her phrase that he wants to fulfill his old dream and see the world. After that, he sarcastically apologizes and leaves. Lai Yunmu is talking to his mother on the phone. He says that he has awakened, and that his father will not be held accountable now. However, Tom still needs self-medication. Mom is a little worried, but Lee assures her that everything is fine and that she should take care of her father. The guy also says that he will soon find time to visit him. After that, they end the call, and Yunmu just lies on his bed for a while thinking. On his t-shirt there is a Fluxer badge, which everyone dreams about very much. This icon can be used as a spatial storage and a three-dimensional virtual space. Without thinking twice, the thought comes to mind that he can visit the virtual space right now. User verification begins, after which the virtual space will be open for free access. The check was successful. Lai Yunmu's badge number is confirmed. The availability of the right to use the virtual space is confirmed. The download starts. Lee begins to move into the virtual space. Everything is illuminated by a bright light again. At some point, the guy realizes that he is in some limitless space. There was a noise somewhere nearby. Lee immediately asks who is here. He turns around abruptly and sees two faceless figures in front of him, who have frozen in certain poses. By themselves, they resemble two mannequins. They inspire a little fear. Suddenly, a shrill laugh is heard behind the guy. Yunmu's body trembles. The guy turns around and sees that some kind of pink dog with a bell around his neck and a bag over his shoulder is flying straight at him. After looking a little closer, Lee already notices that this something resembles a hare. The creature cheerfully greets the guy and appears to be his henchman. He asks me to call him by his first name, Pedro. The hare does a somersault forward and begins a story about how in this virtual world Lee can get a variety of combat skills and techniques. This is the most important place for the growth of power. Then the rabbit points to two faceless figures standing not far from Lee and asks to accept these two virtual models. Yunmu does not immediately understand why he is being offered exactly two models, because he is here alone. Rabbit notices that he has a great sense of humor and points out that Lee is clearly not alone. That creature is definitely able to count. The guy immediately remembers his shadow and asks if it is about her. Lee suggests that the virtual world recognize the shadow as an individual. It seems to him that the shadow should be immune to the limitations of this space. The guy decides not to waste time thinking and asks to start creating a virtual character. In an instant, Lee and his shadow are dressed in interesting clothes. These images suit Yunmu quite well. Noticing this, the conductor warns the guy that he will immediately introduce them to the virtual world. Lee was a little taken aback, but the process has already started. He has no choice but to just wait for what will happen to them next. Like Alice, they are rapidly flying down into an unknown space. The feeling of free fall, the wind causing tears in the eyes. This is the only thing Yunmu is experiencing right now. A little later, a light begins to appear in the guy's field of vision. This light causes a slight sense of awe in Lee. And now, this light is already acquiring the image of a night city. Everything is illuminated by street lights. Everything is like in reality, but only virtual, different. Finally, Yunmu feels the firmament under his feet. He looks around. This place seems rather unusual to him. But then Lee realizes, it's not only unusual, it's also just great. This place struck the guy from the first second of his appearance in it. Time in the virtual world flows 3 times faster, so people here have 3 times more time than ordinary, earthly people. Now Yunmu understands why many great people are so eager to get into the virtual world. Suddenly someone says that a man from a noble family challenged Master Gujil from the temple of the god of war. Events unfold in a special place. Lee is surprised and curious to fix his eyes on what is happening. The guide explains that this is a spatial battlefield. The system of virtual battles is able to copy the skills and abilities of players. It is here that many people hone their combat techniques. While Yunmu digests the information received from the guide, he invites him to go closer. In 2 counts, the system picks up whether the enemy is in the spatial battlefield. The guy is transported to a slightly different area. So far, he is not fully aware of what is happening to him. Suddenly, a weapon begins to form in his hands. Lee still doesn't immediately understand what it's all for, but he doesn't have to wait long, because everything becomes more clear after the whistling sound of an arrow is heard behind the guy's back. He quickly jumps back and sees how it stuck exactly in the place where Lee was a couple of seconds ago. Then the one who fired the arrow appears. The opponent notes Yunmu's luck. Looking up at the opponent, Lee notices a blonde guy with a respirator on his face. He thinks he has stumbled upon a loser, but Lee is not lost, and points his weapon at the enemy, thus showing his readiness for battle. The opponent is very confident. He sympathizes that Lee had such a fate. The guy wishes him only good luck and at the same time launches an arrow towards Yunmu. Lee reacts quickly and does a somersault to the side, thereby dodging the arrow launched at him. The opponent was a little surprised by such an unexpected reaction. He sees Lee cleverly hiding in the bushes. Without much delay, Yunmu hides behind a tree and watches the actions of his opponent. He undertakes the tactics of intimidation, simultaneously looking for the guy with his eyes. He pulls the bow and advises whether to take the shot and let this game be over. As soon as the archer is about to shoot, Lee moves quickly, which is why he is simply lost from sight. The guy lowers the bow and begins to look around. Suddenly, a voice is heard behind him, which penetrates his body to the bone. Realizing the whole situation, the archer begins to reproach himself for relaxing. Yunmu feels his victory and makes a well-aimed shot, thereby ending the fight. He points out that you should not relax, no matter what the opponent turns out to be. At the same time, the archer just turns into pixels. Watching these, Lee notes the fact that the ants near his house were even stronger opponents. After the opponent dissolves into virtual space, some yellow ball charged with energy turns out to be in his place. Lee decides to get closer and figure out what it could be. He most likely guesses, but it will be much more effective to check on his own experience. As soon as the guy approaches, the ball immediately begins to attract to him. After that, it penetrates into Lee's body and dissolves in it. This all knocks Yunmu down. He sinks to the ground and starts trying to catch his breath. He definitely feels like something has just entered his body. This feeling is quite extraordinary. The system issues a notification congratulating Lee on the first absorption of the entity. As a reward, he is awarded equipment of the A-rank Admiralty cover. Lee continues to sit on the ground and falls into thought. By defeating the master of flow energy in the virtual world, you can get an entity for which, later, you can purchase techniques or a skill in the virtual store. Techniques are ancient martial arts that were used by people in the Dark Era. The Admiralty cover technique reduces the damage that will be received by 30%. With each level, the resistance will increase. Feeling new sensations in himself, Lee spreads into a satisfied smile. He wants to try out the new acquired skill in practice as soon as possible. He calls out to Pedro, who immediately responds and climbs out of the bushes. Lee asks him to organize the fight again. Pedro immediately begins to fulfill the request of the guy. The process of selecting opponents starts. At the same time, the location begins to change around. Lee, in anticipation of a new battle, is waiting for the completion of the selection. It seems to him rather tiresome to constantly change the terrain, but he can't do anything about it yet. We have to wait. Suddenly, a pretty red-haired girl with a beautiful figure appears in front of the guy. She has knives in her hands. This confuses Lee because he has his own principle not to fight with girls. Therefore, he does not know what is best for him to do. On the other hand, if he wants to win, then there is simply no other choice. Therefore, without hesitation, the guy takes the first shot. The girl deftly dodges and repels the bullet of her opponent, despite the fact that the shot was very unexpected. This outrages her. She asks if Yunli is ashamed of such actions, because a sneak attack does not belong to a man's act. The guy gets so close to the girl that their noses are about to touch. There is a strong tension between them. They stare fiercely into each other's eyes. Lee declares that he is going to win. He adheres to a policy in which he is ready to do anything for the sake of victory. He is even ready to change his principles and fight with a girl. After that, the battle begins. Lee strikes first again. The girl evades and at the same time notes that the guy is a native of the Simple. Yunmu doesn't quite understand what simple means. The girl also notes this, thus confirming her assumption. They continue to fight, but this does not really prevent them from discussing. Lee tries to figure out what she means, but the opponent is in no hurry to answer his questions. She deftly jumps aside. The girl is going to finish this fight, feeling that now is the right moment. She inhales and suddenly takes off. Around everything begins to light up with a golden glow. The girl is hanging in the air with her eyes closed. She seems to be accumulating a special energy inside herself. The energy that she plans to release outside in the form of a powerful blow. The opponent opens her eyes and starts moving towards Lee. She accelerates, swings and strikes accurately. This makes Lee start screaming. His whole body felt the power of this blow. Lee's whole body is riddled with pain. It's like he's shackled, paralyzed and can't do anything. The girl continues to hold on without hesitation. Some time later, she decides to voice her action. 1,000 cuts, 36 shapes. Lee is unable to listen, but still, something catches his ear. He learns about the attacking technique of the highest class. The girl comes closer to him and is about to continue her monologue about the victoriousness of her technique, but does not have time to finish. Yunmu jumps sharply to the side, thereby completely refuting the effectiveness of this technique. He strikes, causing the girl to shatter into pixel pieces. Lee is furious. He was the first who was able not only to resist after this kind of technique, but also to respond with a total blow. Disappearing. The girl can't believe what is happening now, but the flow of her thoughts is interrupted by her own dissolution in virtual reality. Lee had already had time to think about his loss, but everything turned in his direction. He watched as the opponent simply disappeared before his eyes. Yunmu understands that the dungeon that the girl used is really an attacking technique of ancient cultivators. Lee was lucky that the Admiralty cover took some of the damage, but the opponent did not know about it at all. That's why she was defeated. The system congratulated the guy on his next victory and gave out a reward of 70 space elements. Lee also gained an understanding of the Blade of Suffering technique. Yunmu noted that this is quite a big reward. Apparently, the stronger the defeated opponent, the higher the reward. This led Lee to the idea that he needed to fight again, because since everything is going so well, he needs to give his all. At this time, Yunmu is being watched by the next opponent. She is dissatisfied with the results of the previous battle, as she does not understand how it was possible to lose so much to a beginner who comes from simple. The girl also drew attention to the fact that Yunmu encountered a top-class technique and resisted. Therefore, another rival came to the conclusion that the guy definitely must have some kind of rare defensive technique. 3 days pass. Y is located in the city of the Heavenly Cloud. There's so much trouble in the big city that the guy hasn't been able to find a hospital for half a day. Yunmu bought a basket of fruit and is now going to visit his father. His dad came to the hospital in the city to be treated, but he chose not the best institution for this. It is located in the wilderness. Lee doubts that adequate medical services can be provided in such a place. Suddenly, Yunmu hears the voices of people coming from an alley nearby. The guy decides to see what's going on there. Coming closer, he sees how 3 guys do not give passage to a young girl. They say they just want to chat with her, but if the girl also agrees to drink with them, then everything will be much better. The frightened girl says that she has a lot to do and she needs to hurry, but this is not particularly interesting to the company of guys. One of the guys says he knows that her father is in the hospital. He also knows that Tom needs money. The guy also said that he would not force the girl to walk with them, but would pay a lot of money. At the same time, the facial expression with which he says this does not inspire confidence in the girl. He doesn't have time to finish as soon as a fruit basket arrives. The basket arrives with such force that the guy is thrown aside, and then he just falls to the ground. Everyone freezes in surprise. Lee comes closer to them. He says they should find another place to have fun. The bully can't believe that someone dared to stand in his way. He usually feels confident, but at the moment his confidence began to leave him. Lee decides to show some acting skills. He defiantly approaches the overturned basket and says that everything is ruined, and he tried so hard to make his father happy. But now everything is scattered on the ground. Everything is ruined. It makes the guy angry. Yunmu also said that since things turned out this way, they would have to pay for it. He picked up the fruit from the ground and looked reproachfully at the offender. The girl only now began to recognize Yunmu. She looked at him in surprise. I opened my mouth to say something, but I couldn't. Lee asks the girl to stay put and not move, as they can still throw something. The guy looks tense and ready to act. The frightened girl looked at him with understanding and showed by her appearance that she would do everything he asked. Yunmu comes closer to the scoundrel. He bared the knife with rage and fear. He tries to intimidate Lee by trying to exalt himself in status, but he doesn't do it very well. Lee responds in such a way that the opponent completely loses all self-confidence. With one movement, Yunmu knocks the weapon out of the guy's hands. He is horrified to realize that he is in a very bad situation. Sweat broke out on his forehead. All he did was just stand there shackled by his unexpected fright. At one point, Lee swings and strikes at the enemy with all his might. He takes the whole blow and flies away. Yunmu continues the punishment procedure for a while. Outraged shouts can only be heard from the alley. The culprit asks Lee to stop. Having dealt with the deviants, Lee approaches the main one in their group and takes money out of his pocket. He takes them away as a sign of apology. To be more precise, for spoiled fruit. One of them asks Yunmu to let them go, because he has already taught them a lesson and even received compensation for the damage they caused. The guy also asks if he will really play lifeguard all his life and protect the girl. Lee answers the question with a question. What kind of hero are we talking about, and what kind of nonsense is that guy talking about? There can be no question of doubt here, because this girl is his sister. Lee begins to teach his older sister Liu Ruyan. He says she always finds herself in trouble during his absence. Yunmu holds up the found business card and reads the information CEO Liu Xiaoguo. The girl apologizes for causing inconvenience. This time, Lee forgives her, as if he hadn't stumbled upon his sister, he would never have found the hospital. The sister's abuser immediately became white and fluffy. He offers his business card to Lee and says that he can call at any time, and he guarantees that he will come to the rescue immediately. Yunmu takes this business card and throws it in the trash without even asking about the information in it. Lee and Liu are heading to the hospital. Yunmu asks his sister what the guy meant when he said that she was urgently looking for money. Lee thought the girl was moonlighting. It occurs to him that the treatment may be so expensive that Liu simply does not have enough of them. The girl says that her father's injuries turned out to be much more serious than expected, so almost all of their savings over the past few years have been spent. But she also assured that the hard-earned money would allow him to stay in the hospital for some time. Lee listens carefully and thinks about everything. A lot of thoughts are spinning in his head. He understands perfectly well that it won't work that way. Yunmu sees that sister has done too much as a daughter. He asks her to leave the rest of the expenses to him, because now Lee is awakened. Money is no longer a problem. Lee goes on. The sister stops, but the guy keeps moving and praises his sister for her efforts. This throws Liu off the track a bit. She just stands there and looks after her brother. Brother and sister reach the hospital. Lee tells his sister to go to the ward while he handles the bills. He knows the room number, so the nurse calmly goes upstairs. Entering the ward, she greets her parents. They immediately worry about her condition and offer water, as they believe that they have tired their daughter. The girl asks not to say so. She also tells the good news that they don't have to worry about money anymore, as everything has already been decided. The father immediately thinks that his old friend, a colleague, contributed to this. Hearing this, Lee enters the ward and tells his father if he remembers anything that they served together. For parents, the arrival of their son turns out to be a surprise. He asks about his father's condition. The man first laughs it off, and then says that he has no legs. This news shocks my son. And no matter how the father laughs it off, it does not change the attitude to the situation. The father is still jokingly asking where his son got so much money from. But Yunmu is not in the mood for jokes right now. He says that he gained energy because he became awakened. The father did not immediately understand what his son had just said. He stares at it for a while without taking his eyes off it, and then bursts into loud laughter. The man does not take this news seriously, as he refuses to believe it until the last. All this time, the son silently looks at this circus on the road. Then he just turns around and walks away, muttering under his breath. The father still does not stop and goads his son even more. Mother and Liu silently watch what is happening. Then the man asks his daughter to help him lift one thing. The girl immediately fulfills her father's request. An unusual briefcase is lying on the man's bed. He opens it and asks Lee to take it with him. The guy, coming closer, recognizes the combat weapons that his father values so much. It is able to significantly increase the combat power of the awakened. Now the father says all this in all seriousness. Lee doesn't quite understand why he gives him such a valuable thing. The father replies that while he is in this state, it will no longer be useful to him. Of course, an ordinary person will not be able to use these weapons thoughtlessly, since he will not be able to cope with such force. And for the awakened and those who feel energy, it is of great importance. Lee takes the gun and tells his father that he will only use it a little. He also promises that in the future a man will be able to use him again, since Lee will definitely find a way to put him on his feet. Yunmu activates the combat weapon. Now he is the new master of combat weapons. The morning came. Lee has already packed all his things. During this time, he was pretty tired, so he collapsed on the bed and exhaled. Tomorrow he will go to the Heavenly Cloud Castle. Before, the guy didn't even have a chance to get there. Lee initially lay down to examine the case with the weapon, which was given to him by his father. The second day comes. The weather is sunny and warm. The haven of the Guild of the City of Happy Wind is illuminated by sunlight. The guild members themselves gathered in the square. A dark solid car pulls up, from which one young man gets out and begins to watch the rest of the people. There is a dialogue that a certain Mr. Liu has been waiting for a long time for the moment when the young master of their family will become awakened. Suddenly, the person who got out of the car asks not to block his way. All the attention of people immediately becomes riveted to him. The whispering begins. Someone asks if this guy happens to be the new #1 in Jiafeng City. The guy's name is Luo Jing. Rumor has it that his father broke through to the highest level and became a master. A descendant of a wealthy Jiafeng family, Zhang Daxing, also appears on the square, and the granddaughter of the chairman of the Association of Masters, Liu Noji, appeared. While Zhang is unhappy with everything, the girl on the contrary is very happy to be here. She is looking forward to meeting her grandfather. Two guys who watch the visitors discuss the youth. They note that the guys gathered here are quite talented compared to previous years. Suddenly, someone loudly announces the arrival of a new awakened one. Li came here with his best friend, who solemnly introduced him. Yunmu is carried like a king. The observers immediately pay attention to the guy. Someone is happy, and someone thinks that such an appearance is already too much. Zhang begins to laugh out loud and generally considers the new awakened imbecile. Li himself considers everything that is happening a disgrace. He wants to sink into the ground out of shame. The guy doesn't like the aura at all. He is being carried so absurdly. My best friend is walking next to me. A huge audience is watching all this. Liu Noji watches Lai with interest. She doesn't have any negative feelings towards Yunmu. The girl on the contrary was sincerely glad. One woman loudly called all the newcomers to gather in one place and line up in columns in pairs. This is all necessary in order to go to Tianyuan. The woman says that everyone will be called in turn. Distribution begins. Everything began to be illuminated by blue light. Energy is generated. It is so powerful that from the recoil many had to duck to stand on their feet. Li does not expect this, but continues to stand confidently on his feet. Perspiration appears on the forehead. It's hard to keep your eyes open. They call the right pair. Luo Jin is asked to step forward. He obediently fulfills the request. Zhang Daxing is appointed as his companion. They are given permission to move out. The companions enter the gate, which is formed from the flow of energy. Li is called next. They give him Liu Noji as a partner. The girl deftly grabs his hand and pulls him along. She introduces herself to him personally and says that she is glad to meet him. Li is very embarrassed. A blush appears on his cheeks. He reciprocates the acquaintance. Having heard her voice once, he would never be able to forget it again. Through the energy wall, Lai and Liu Noji enter the heavenly cloud castle. Yunmu admires the majesty of the castle. The city itself is nothing compared to the lower cities. Liu had heard from her father that this city was constantly being mixed up in the sky. This really surprises the guy. The city is moving, as only constant movement helps to escape from the attack of monsters. After all, people live in a world where no one is happy for them. A representative of the Jiafeng Awakened Academy Association appears. He asks everyone to follow him. This is a tall, black-haired man. His name is Tangun. He tells the newcomers that if nothing happens within the next 3 years, the academy will become a place of residence and headquarters. The group is invited to go to the bus. Tangun says that there are currently 7 moving fortified castles in Chengzhou. Now they are in one of them, Tianyuan. The main goal of the Awakened Academy is to help students wake up and make this place their home. These 7 moving castles manage their neighborhoods. Tianyuan governs 136 cities. New awakened ones move to such cities every day. These cities are also responsible for teaching theory and real combat training. They also accompany students in the process of becoming awakened. They are preparing students who can be relied on and who can work alone. But do not rejoice ahead of time when passing the entrance test, because this event takes place annually a year and a half after the start. There is a rating tournament in the city of Chengzhou. Chengzhou will adjust the quota for the supply of resources for cities under its jurisdiction in accordance with the results of the ranking tournament. Tangun concludes by saying that all residents rely on students, so they have a lot of responsibility. Good luck to everyone. The bus gets to its destination. The director says that the life of Jiafeng City takes place here, and if anyone has any questions, they can ask them to Tang at any time. Li approaches the director because he has a question. The guy says that he recently defeated one girl in the virtual arena, and her strength was slightly different from usual. Her energy had the power of fire. Upon hearing this, the director freezes in amazement. His eyes express concern. He hardly believes that the guy smashed to smithereens the awakened with the dark energy of the stream. Zhang is standing nearby and hears Lai's conversation with the director. This information does not please him. Other students are outraged. They believe that Yunmu's bragging should already have some limit. No one believes in his victory and considers him an imposter. In addition, he is a beginner, so he could not, in their opinion, encounter an awakened one with dark energy flow. Even Luo Jin can't boast of that. Li is a little confused by all this. He didn't think that it was such a rare power that few people could control. The director says that this is not just a rare, but in principle an impossible power for such a novice as Yunmu. Liu says that the dark energy of the stream has a destructive power. Fire is born in man. Simply put, the attribute of this power is fire, but a simple person cannot possess it. This happens out of 1,000 awakened ones. The girl says that if Li was able to overcome the awakened one with the dark energy of the stream, then he is really a capable guy. Yunmu stops, looks at Liu and asks if she believes him. The girl calmly and confidently answers him in the affirmative. She thinks how it can be argued that a person is weak until you see his real strength. If he is just a person, it does not mean that he is weak. Li feels pleasantly embarrassed and blushes. He is pleased to hear this from a girl. In order not to give it away, he says that they need to hurry to the hostel to be among the first there. The dorm looks pretty solid. This is a large building, with green spaces and a picturesque view. The place is so picturesque that students feel as if they were at a resort. They are invited to choose the room themselves, which will appeal to their liking. Since Luo Jin is considered the strongest, he is invited to choose a room first. It doesn't matter if it concerns the family or the opponent, Luo Jin always chooses first. While everyone was deciding on the rooms, Li had already decided on his choice. He chose a room located to the side. This will allow him to learn how to control shadows. The guy approaches the others and asks how they are doing. But one guy isn't exactly happy with Li's company. He says he doesn't decide anything here. They have special rules that Yunmu just broke. The guy is trying to find fault with Li for any reason, but his indignation is interrupted by Zhang, saying that he has already decided on a room. His choice fell on the one that is located closest. Disturbances begin. The rest of the students are dissatisfied with the fact that some group of simpletons decided to show arbitrariness. Li decides to move away from the uproar. The guy opens the door to his new room. After the guy enters the room, she impresses him very much. She is so beautiful and much better than the one at the guy's house. Does the excellent environment motivate you to start training, especially since the vastness of the room quietly allows it? The guy activates the shadow system. A blue dialog box pops up. But suddenly there is a notification that the system requires an update due to a change of residence. Therefore, it is required to wait for some time. This information surprises Li very much. Morning came. Very sleepy, Li leaves his room and moves towards the classroom. Opening the door, the guy wishes everyone a good morning, assuming that everything is already in its place. But when the door swings open, Li observes only one Liu, who joyfully greets the guy. A little confused, Yunmu enters the audience and wonders why there is no one but the girl. She replies that this is due to the fact that the first classes are theoretical. They describe some basics for the awakened. Everyone finished with the theory before arriving in Tianyuan. These lessons are especially for unexpectedly awakened people. Li walks further down the audience. It seems to him that everything here is organized only for the two losers. The guy is glad the girls are present. Otherwise, he would feel awkward. Teacher Lai Boven enters the classroom. The man is tall. He is dressed classically, a black shirt and black trousers. He is surprised that at least someone came to these lessons this year. The man greeted those present and offered to take seats. Liu approached the teacher, saying that she had come specifically to meet with the teacher. The man is interested in how Grandpa Liu is doing. The guy did not expect that the girl was already known here. The girl also tells about Lai Yunmu in parallel. She warns that Tom will need to study well, even though he has a promising talent. The girl wishes good luck to Yunmu and leaves the audience. At this moment, the guy realizes that the only loser here is only him. The guy thought, since no one has been coming to this lesson for 4 years, apparently they are not so bad. But on the other hand, there are currently no honest people who do not rely on family ties or absorb energy crystals. In addition, Lai Boven has a good relationship with the teacher's granddaughter. This girl is in a privileged position. Bowen suggests that Lai change his seat, because sitting alone in class is not the best event. They go out on the roof and start the lesson. Li doesn't know anything yet, but he has already taken and got the power of the awakened, which he also doesn't know anything about. The man tells different subtleties. The progress level of the awakened power is as follows: black crystal, silver crystal, golden crystal, and rainbow crystal. Having overcome all these levels, the awakened one will become a master of the flow. Lee jumps off the hill and moves on to what interests him most. The guy asks me to tell you how to overcome your limits and develop energy. The teacher, sitting on the floor and drinking an energy drink, begins to tell. To overcome your limits, you need to awaken your vital points. The awakened one can awaken 12 flow points in his body. Awakening points in the feet and calves enhance dexterity. Points in the palms and hands develop strength. And the awakening of a point in the head sharpens thinking, reflexes, 5 senses, fortitude, and the like. But the awakening of these points is available only after the black crystal is contracted. Lee looks down at the teacher and asks how they can be awakened. The figure of the guy is illuminated by the sun, which is why Bevan can't fully see the guy. He rises and says that it is not so difficult to awaken these points. The most important condition is to deal with a sufficient number of monsters and absorb their energy flow. 3 days pass. An unscheduled meeting has been held since the morning. Students crowd into a large spacious hall and wait for the next orders. Still sleepy, Lee tries to figure out what's going on. As soon as he goes out into the environment, many begin to cast glances at him and whisper to each other. Among all these whispers, Lee identified the basis that creates his image, a guy who goes to theoretical classes every day. A guy named Wu approaches Lee. He believes that he is different in his level. Hao tells how they went to training all these days and learned so much new things. Lee just wants peace. It seems to him that Hao clearly hates his kind. The director approaches them and orders Hao to get in line. Before that, the guy was constantly causing problems in the director's classes. The man begins to call all the students. He immediately wants to convey to the youth the fact that, despite all his elegance, he still remains to be their teacher. Today, a practical class is being announced, which everyone has missed with a special feature. Students should pair up on their own and go to different places. And the main task for today is to deal with 10 monsters. Lee is very happy about such a task, because this is exactly what he needs. Monsters will not pity students for being students. The director assures everyone that if someone gets into a dangerous situation, he will immediately come to the rescue. But in other situations, students will have to rely on their partner in strength. It's time to divide into pairs. Luo Jin approaches Liu and says he wants to take her as his partner. The girl looks at him in confusion. She doesn't want to be paired with Lo at all. Liu stands in thought for a while, but when he is about to refuse, Li runs up to her and asks if she wants to become his partner. The team of Lai Yunmu and Liu Naoji goes to the ruins at number 7. Once it was an outpost created by people of the 5th dimension. But then the ferocity of the monsters was underestimated. Lai and Liu are moving in space. The first thing the guy asks is why the girl didn't want to be in a team with Luo Jin. Because he's strong. Besides, it would be much easier to pass this test with him. The girl explains that Luo Jinping does not care about the feelings of others. He puts himself above the rest. And Liu doesn't like people like him. She also thanks Li for saving her from this embarrassing rejection. Yunmu says he didn't have any candidates for a team partner anyway. The other students didn't want to be on the team with him. While the students are talking, a monster is standing nearby, watching its victims. But suddenly there is a noise from there. Lai and Liu turn around abruptly. Now they see that the monsters are approaching them. These beings belong to a lower level. They are coming from different sides. Li suggests that this group of monsters may have a leader. However, the guy does not know where he is hiding. But I didn't have to wait long. The monster is standing right behind them. Frightened, Liu looks at Lai and does not know what to do next. The guy is standing and thinks time is short. Li decides to move abruptly. He notices it in time, because at this moment the monster strikes a powerful blow. Liu notes the destructive power of the enemy. Now it's no wonder why he is considered the leader of this group of monsters. The enemy strikes another blow on the ground, from which a huge depression forms at the point of impact. The creature is furious and overflowing with a willingness to destroy everything around. Liu notices the monster's clumsiness, so he selects the appropriate tactics for striking from the air. She jumps up very high and outlines a trajectory for herself. The girl's eyes fill with blood, and she turns her head down to fly like a falcon at the monster. She no longer considers him an opponent. His one laser eye looks directly at Liu. The girl did not expect such a turn of events at all. Liu throws in a cold sweat. A new assumption appears in her head, the justification of which she is very afraid. Is this guy a mid-level monster? The bully opens his huge mouth and emits a heart-rending loud scream, from which the girl turns everything inside out with fear. Li comes to her rescue. He calls out to the girl and tells her that no matter what, she is the best in their group. Therefore, no medium-level monster should terrify her. The guy's eyes are also covered with blood. He hits his hand right on the monster's open mouth. A satisfied grin appears on his face. The monster tried to defend himself and try to close his teeth, but his attempts are in vain. This only makes Lee even more excited and angry at the same time. He asks the monster who he decided to devour. The guy jumps up and swings, preparing to strike another blow. At the same time, he reproaches the bully for damaging his school uniform, which is now quite expensive. Lee accumulates all the power in himself and beats the opponent. From such a compensatory blow, he simply drives into the ground. Satisfied with his work, Yunmu shakes his hands. He thinks that for an average level, this monster is not so strong. Liu is standing not far from the guy. The girl is a little confused by everything that is happening. They cross glances, and for a while they look at each other in silence. Suddenly, the guy starts screaming and shaking his hand, remembering that he almost had it torn off by a monster. Lee screams about the pain, which is not there at all. Liu watches this scene in silence for a while, and then tells him to stop pretending, since he is standing unharmed. Then the girl admits that she knows about his high defense skills. Lee is not entirely happy with this, as he planned to hide it from the others. He asks how the girl found out about it. Liu said that not so long ago he defeated a student with the dark energy of the stream, who is her friend. She had seen their duel, and if any other ordinary person had watched it, they would have decided that Xiao Yu had lost because of her weakness. But Liu knows about its destructive power. The fact that Yunmu was able to resist her attacks shows that he is not an easy person. However, Liu understands perfectly well why he doesn't want to flaunt his strength. Still, the world is not particularly friendly. Li is silent. In fact, he doesn't show his strength because he doesn't know about it. Yunmu didn't want to show his defensive technique because other people might start asking about it because of his family's financial situation. But Liu guessed it herself. He decides to get out of it and says that he trains a lot and one day plans to match his skills with the skills of a girl. But a monster appears on the notepad and he warns the girl. Together, they decide to relax and have some fun. Realizing the seriousness of the opponents, the monsters already regret that they got in their way. The poor devils even start screaming in fear. This beautiful sunny day, the ruins are in perfect harmony with this weather. In such an atmospheric environment, Lai and Liu are fighting monsters. Everything is going very smoothly and according to plan. The guy is fighting some kind of dinosaur-like red monster. Li throws him a few meters forward, causing him to drive on the ground. Exhaling, the guy relaxes. It was the last monster. The redness of the eyes gradually begins to subside, and the heartbeat acquires a measured pace. Yunmu and the girl look at what is left after their joint work. Lai asks if a simple awakened person can receive the dark energy flow of Liu's girlfriend. The girl says that this is considered a secret, and asks if Yunmu wants to gain this energy. Without waiting for an answer, she is ready to share her secret, since Li has revealed his secret to her. The girl says that in any case, all this is useless for Yunmu, except for the first way of obtaining energy through innate genetics. But there is another way. You need to cope with the monster kings of different levels by absorbing their crystals. Theoretically, this will make it possible to get the dark energy of the stream. However, since these kings are too strong and there are always a large number of monster minions near them, the authorities are hiding this information in order to save the lives of strong awakened ones who may want to try their luck. The girl immediately tells Li not to even try to do it, as it is very dangerous. He simply agreed, without giving any consent. At this time, the principal is waiting for the students. He begins to worry, since the students have been there for quite a long time. Here comes the first pair. This is a pair of Lai and Yunmu. The director does not understand why they arrived first. Coming out of the dimension, a guy and a girl argue with each other, not noticing the man. Liu does not want to let Lai go in search of the dark energy of the stream. He is indignant, saying that he understood everything. Yunmu crosses eyes with the director and silently stops. He says that he did not expect them to see them among the first. The man begins to ask how their level is, considering the idea of sending newcomers to a place where monsters of medium rank live funny. Li is very angry about this and you express your dissatisfaction with the competence of the director. The guy said that Liu Noji almost died because of this. The man began to justify himself, saying that he did not know about all this. All on edge, Yunmu turns around and leaves, muttering discontentedly to himself. The director, who has fallen to the ground, looks after him. Then he rises, and with a satisfied grin says that there are not enough monsters of the average category. Other students begin to appear. The pair of Wu Hu and Liu Jin will finish second. Hu is happy to be paired with Lo. Together, they quickly defeated 10 lower-level monsters and are confident that they returned first. But after meeting a couple of Lai and Liu, they descended to the ground. A satisfied Yunmu greets his rivals. The guy can't resist and says that because Woohoo was in the way of Luo Jin, he came later than Lai. Yunmu turns around and, leaving, advises Luo Jin to rub his eyes when looking for his henchman. Woohoo is about to go deal with Lai, but he stops him. Lai approaches Liu, but Luo Jin suddenly stops him and asks him to wait. He asks the girl how she coped so quickly, thereby belittling Li's abilities. Yunmu just stands there and listens to what will happen next. Luo says he can hardly believe it's all thanks to Lai Yunmu's power. At this moment, another couple returns and finds this dialogue. They decide to observe what is happening. The girl knows that Lo can't stand her, so she is surprised that he talks to her. To say that he doesn't believe in achievements in Lai Yunmu is quite in his style. The girl decided to answer that this time she was ahead of the attributes of the monsters, so she quickly coped with them. Lo asks if that's the only reason. The guy looks at her, smiling with his eyes. It shows that he is trying to get the girl's location. Students watching from the side discuss them. One green-haired guy thinks that Lai Yunmu is lucky to be with such a strong partner. Another noticed that Li did nothing and passed the practice so quickly, without much difficulty. The guy with green hair asks rhetorically if it's luck. But then Li appears next to him and says that he does not believe in luck. That guy calls it all a lie. 6 months pass. The action unfolds in the next ruins. The weather is sunny and clear. A defeated green monster falls to the ground. This is another last opponent. Li stands among a bunch of defeated monsters and says that he is already bored of doing all this, as he copes with opponents very easily. Having defeated all the level 17 monsters in the ruins, now the guy can say with absolute certainty that they do not need help. However, the training is coming to an end. The next competition will be much more interesting, because these are the Zhangzhou rating competitions. These 6 months fly by unnoticed for Yunmu. He never has time to use the shadow system. All this time it has not been updated at all. This annoys Li, so he begins to consider this system useless. At the academy, it is customary to gather everyone early in the morning. Yesterday, Li trained to the last and is currently in a completely powerless state. Everyone is standing in the hall again and waiting for further instructions. The teacher comes and says that this time he has gathered everyone about the organization and preparation of one event, which will be attended by a huge number of people. The Zhangzhou ranking competitions are approaching. In a week, the Heavenly Cloud Castle will stop in the Lamu River Zone. Teams of 5 or 7 people will be given the opportunity to go outside and fight monsters on the territory of the Lamu River. Points will be awarded for monsters, the number of which will determine the assessment of each student in the academy. Also, all the results will be calculated and published in the form of a rating. As soon as the moment of exit comes, everyone will be accompanied by flying cameras for 24 hours. The teacher points with his hand at small round flying objects that will capture every action. Anyone in all earthly cities will be able to capture every action of students. Small cameras fly up to each student. Li looks at this device with surprise and some kind of disbelief. Students are also reminded not to forget to choose armor to increase the chances of survival. Also, after the meeting, students can start forming their own group. The teacher wishes everyone good luck in achieving excellent results. Yunmu is thinking about the armor. He already has the best soldier's armor available, which he inherited from his father. The guy decides to look for Liu Noji. After meeting the girl, Li learns that she has already been accepted into another team. Liu feels guilty for this and apologizes to Lai. The guy didn't expect it to happen so quickly. She explains that a schedule has been drawn up here for a long time. She was put on the same team with Luo Jin and Hu Wu. Everyone thinks that if you mix the previously awakened with the newcomers, it will not benefit the Jiefeng rating. Lai decides at first to say that it's okay, because the girl can't disobey their order. He pats her on the head, and then just turns around and starts to leave. Liu asks what he is going to do in this case. The guy assures that he will come up with something, even though he said it like that. But he has absolutely no idea who to team up with. Suddenly, a guy with green hair calls out to him. He approaches Li and invites him to join their team. Yunmu is surprised that the rich kid Zhang Daxing offers it to him. They haven't even spoken to him once, so Li doesn't understand why he called him. Yunmu expresses indifference and accepts the invitation. Zhang rejoices and offers to show him the rest of the team members. The group consists of some kind of losers, Lin and Jiefeng, the son of the richest man in the city, and Ray Qianlong Jiefeng, the son of the second richest man in the city. Li is not happy about such company at all. But unfortunately, there is no choice left, so we will have to find a common language with them. Zhang announces the formation of the Big Qing squad and offers to go to the teacher for registration. Lin and says they can't do it since there are only 4 of them, and it takes 5 people to register. Lee already regrets that he agreed to join their team, since the members of this group are still those fools. The next day comes. Lai is given 7,500 yuan. The guy is outraged, as they are offered to buy armor for this money, but the problem is that you can't buy much for them at all. They won't even be enough for a tent, and there can be no question of equipment at all. Lee stands in the store and looks at the bag of money given to him. A guy comes in nearby and buys everything he can use. Yunmu envies him. Zhang approaches Lai and asks what he is doing. Lee realizes that he is rich. Zhang begins to sympathize with the guy, asking what he will do without transport, tents, and other important things. Lee abruptly replies that he doesn't need a bike, he can run. Yes, and it will do without a tent, too. At the very least, he will sleep on the ground. Zhang does not expect that Lai is so poor, and says that the Big Qing squad will not let him offend. The guy even started crying from the overflow of emotions. Lee looks at him and asks him to calm down. Zhang grabs his hand, leads him to the cash register, puts down his bank card and asks the seller to pack whatever Lai wants. The amount is 1,400,003,000 yuan. Lee is already modestly and awkwardly watching the purchase process nearby. Zhang also takes 2 cars and asks to prepare the best combat vehicle for him, which he will pick up next week. Lee looks and realizes that being rich is very good. The amount has already reached 12,700,000 yuan. Zhang also takes the most expensive tent, which costs him 6 million yuan. Yunmu is already sweating from the inconvenience. He feels like some kind of kept woman, and again he admires how wonderful it is to be rich. The action unfolds in the Awakened Association. Wu Hu asks Luo Jin if, in his opinion, Lai Yunmu will decide to take part in the competition. Luo has no idea. This time, Liu Naoji will be in their group, but they can invite Lai to join their team. Wu Hu wonders why Jin is so interested in Yunmu. At this time, a car is rushing at full speed, but it is still far away from them. Luo Jin says that Lai annoys him because he comes from a poor family. The sight of him makes him sick. At this second, a red car drives past the guys at high speed and almost knocks down Hu Wu. He begins to violently resent such driving. But when he sees Lai Yunmu driving, his voice disappears for a few seconds. Then he asks what the association needed. Yunmu importantly gets out of the car and says that he has business here. Besides, competitions will start soon and who knows, maybe if he takes a couple of tasks, then luck will be on his side. Wu Hu mockingly asks if he has really found a team for himself. Suddenly Zhang calls out to him. The guy turns around and sees Li's team on rich cars. Zhu is sitting on the hood of a car in a wreck and asks Li how he likes the car. If suddenly something does not suit, they are ready to buy him a new one. Wu Hu wonders if Yunmu really considers a bunch of rich fools to be his team. In addition, they are not enough to register a team. Zhang reports with a satisfied grin that he has already solved the issue with the last member of the team, and he will arrive soon. There is a loud hum of a motorcycle engine. Someone drives towards them at full speed, and then, drawing patterns from the braking of tires on the asphalt, stops. The man takes off his helmet. Everyone stands in surprise. It turns out to be a Fenghua High School student. Beautiful girl with a black square. She is wearing a white top, blue shorts, and a black jacket. Her name is Lin Shuang. Zhang cordially greets the girl, calling her sister Shuang. Lin did not expect to meet his sister here at all. He asks what she's doing here. The news that this girl and Lin share the Yunmu genes. He refuses to believe to the last that this is so. Luo Jin says that Lin Shuang is not from this city, so she breaks the rules by joining a group with people from other cities. This could harm Jiafeng's rating. In response, the girl throws a brooch with the emblem of the academy, thereby showing that she has already entered the Jiafeng Academy. Wu Hu asks Lo who this girl represents. Feng Hui's rating is much higher than Jiafeng's. In addition, Lin Shuang is a second level awakened. In addition, she possesses a black crystal of flow energy. Luo Jin had heard that the girl had been studying with the flow master for several years, and during that time she had mastered fearless fighting skills. Compared to them, she is a first-class master. Zhang happily tells the girl that he did not expect her arrival. This makes him very happy, because together with Lin there are a sufficient number of people in their team. The girl is also glad to see her friends. Lin wants his sister to return back to Fenghua. The girl replies that she has come to take care of her brother, because if mom and dad find out that he is the last in the ranking, they will faint from such news. Yunmu suggests that they go to the reception desk, since everyone has already gathered and the number of people now allows it. Lin Shuang pays attention to Lai. The girl notes his big difference from the rest of the students. Something about him catches on. But the girl doesn't think anything else and is distracted by other things. A week passes. The city of Tiananmen makes a successful landing. The airlock gates are about to open. They have high hopes for the students of the academy and wish everyone success. Cars with groups of students are waiting for the opening. When the gate opens, the motorcade moves forward. Millions of people froze waiting for the awakened ones to appear. At the hospital, Yunmu's father made himself comfortable to cheer for his son. Lee's sister is next to her father. Luo Jin is worried about the speed of the car they are driving in. Wu Hu assures him that there is no car faster than this one. Lo looks at the map and looks for a safe place. He remembers that the map showed a suitable place by the river. He suggests that the group stop there and take a short break. In addition, everyone will need to equip their armor and prepare for battle. Liu Noji is sitting in the back seat. She's worried about Yunmu since she hasn't seen him for a long time. The girl does not know yet that he has found a team for himself. There's something coming from behind. The group is wary and decides to behave cautiously. Something is moving so fast that they already think it's a monster. But then they look at the silhouette of a car moving behind. Wu Hu is surprised that someone can move faster than them, because he himself was engaged in the modification of this machine. Besides, there are no people in Tianyang who understand cars better than Hu. The oncoming blue car accelerates even faster and flies up on high ground. The car is flying so high that it is already in the air ahead of Luo Jin's car. Wu Hu leans out of the window and recognizes them as the group that Lai Yunmu is in. They land at great speed and drive on. The group stop to rest near the river in a picturesque area. Lai Yunmu is figuring out the next route. In a hurry, they arrived at the very beginning and did not decide what their destination would be. Lin Shuang says she doesn't care where she goes. The size of the monsters here is no difficulty for her. Lin is scared and asks her to go to a more or less safe place, because anyway Luo Jin already has a lot of points. They are already inferior to them. Zhang assures everyone that they should have no problems with Sister Shuang and a fast car. The guy points out the place of the next stop on the map. This is the area of operation of the Ayu demons. These are the most dangerous monsters on the coast of the Lamu River. Lin says that if you meet a monster alone, it won't be a problem at all. On the contrary, it will be weaker. But the problem is that they all live together. In addition, they are very smart and hate people. They always attack in a group. These monsters resemble werewolves. Their eyes glow red, their teeth are sharp and their tongues are long. They themselves are black as darkness. If they surround, then there may not be a living place left of a person. Zhang fervently says that's why no one goes there. If they go there, then all the points will belong to them, and no one will take them away. Not everyone approved of this idea, as at first glance it really sounds crazy and dangerous. Yunmu tries to calm everyone down and says that nothing will happen. He asks if Shuang is with them. The girl agrees. The vote came out 2 against 3. Therefore, it was decided to move forward on the road. Lin's brother begins to panic and asks to be dropped off from the car. He is asked to keep his opinion to himself. If Lin is left here alone, he will die here much faster. Ahead is the habitat of the demons of Ayu. We will develop an action plan. When they get out of the car, everyone will immediately put on armor. You need to be on alert. The team has gathered. Zhang donned the executioner's armor and took a high-speed pressure cannon with him. Qianlong in hunter armor. His weapon is a sword that takes lives. Ling'an in the armor of a life eater. The weapon is a cross flywheel. Shuang dressed up in a warrior costume. When everyone sees Yunmun, they are very surprised by his equipment. He's wearing the uniform of the Temple of War. You can't buy such armor for any money. Zhang immediately runs to the guy and starts looking at everything. Li doesn't even have time to understand something. This armor is really good. Yunmu has no idea where his father could get such a rare thing. There is a noise in the bushes. Something is coming. Shuang commands everyone to seek shelter. At one point, the team runs away in different directions. Everyone takes a safe place. Lin asks Big Xing to report on the current situation around. Zhang reports that he sees a target. 2 Ayu demons. It looks like they're patrolling the area. Shuang asks the guy to make sure there are no other monsters nearby. Zhang reports that everything is clean. The girl gives the command to Zhang Daxing, Lai Yunmun to get ready for action. Everyone is prepared. Shuang throws a candy to distract the monster. He approaches and picks it up to examine it better. At this moment, the group deals with one monster with a shot, and Li runs out and deals with the second one on his own. The target has been eliminated. The action unfolds in the Working Union of Musicians. The city of the Black Emperor is beating its past records quite quickly this year, and already at this stage it has broken into the top 4. Despite the fact that only half a day has passed, the participants of the City of White Snow are very strong. Last year they were in 49th place, and now they are in the top 30. Everyone is discussing the City of Happy Wind, in which a new participant Luo Jin has appeared. But it is not the reason for successful promotion. The director does not believe that he scored so many points. At this time, there is a battle with monsters. Lin runs away from the creatures in a panic, shouting at the same time that it's Yunmu's turn. The guy is in a hurry to help a friend. He jumps out of hiding and calms the guy down. Lin lured the demons and left the rest of the actions to other team members. Lee is ready to fight. He encourages monsters to attack them together. They look at him angrily, and now the next battle begins. Yunmu deals with the first batch of monsters in 2 counts. Then 2 more monsters fly at him from behind. The guy also deftly copes with them. Shuang chides Yunmu for not concentrating during the attack, and this can lead to bad consequences and harm someone from the team members. The girl stands with Zhang on the branches of trees. In her hands is a bow, and the guy has a weapon. One of the monsters is trying to escape. He cannot be released, as he will report everything to his tribe, and then the team may have big problems. Qianlong takes the Life Eater's flywheel and launches it at the monster. The weapon hits the target exactly. This time the group coped with only 30, not 40 opponents. Shuang thinks they have already earned a decent amount of points. Zhang asks Anya to bring another pack of demons. He is not very happy. The guy is indignant. He is tired of being the bait for the 5th time, so he decides to refuse. Then Zhang suggests Yunmu go, and it will fight in the first line. This trick works, so the guy asks back to be the bait. Shuang was sitting nearby, leaning her back against a tree. Zhang approaches her and asks how the girl is doing. Her mind is occupied with Yunmun. He initially seemed to the girl to be somehow special, different from the others. Zhang had told her that Lai had awakened less than a year ago. This makes the girl even more confused. After all, in such a short period of time, it is simply impossible to develop the strength that Lai Yunmu possesses now. Rumor has it that he woke up a few days before the test. Li's strength is special, so the girl does not stop watching him. Zhang says that's why he invited the guy to join their group. On brings another batch of monsters to them. He runs, tears welling up in his eyes. The whole group focus their attention on this scene. But things are much worse since the guy lured the head of the demons of the Ayu tribe. The order is given to everyone to retreat. The group sits near the campfire and sums up the day. They had a great catch today. Zhang opens the summary of the results and begins to announce them. According to the diagram, Yunmu dealt with 230 monsters. This brings their team 43% of revenue. Lin Shuang did well. She dealt with 92 monsters, which is 35%. The guys in the cover were also able to deal with about the same amount. The girl was covering Li all the time. The guy says that if it wasn't for that, she would have easily overtaken him in points. However, without her protection, he wouldn't have been able to attack opponents so easily. Lin looks at him and realizes that the guy wants to throw all the credit on her. She understands that this is all done in order to hide her strength. Zhang notices that his friend is sitting somewhat drooping, so he decides to ask what happened to him. The guy is worried about the fact that he tried his best all day, but in the end he only got 5 points. Qianlong says he also got a couple of points, so he tells Anya not to whine about nothing. Lin Shuang connects. She is ready to give the guy all her points so that he calms down. Li had no idea that points could be given. After learning this, he says that he will also give 15% to the cockroach. Qianlong is surprised. He asks if Yunmu is sure of this, because he earned them with such backbreaking work. The guy refers to the fact that they are a team, so they should cooperate. Too late. The team decides to divide the loot and then go to rest in a tent. Having completed all his business, Li returns to the tent. Crystals of flow energy fall into his field of vision. The guy picks them up, sits on the sofa and begins to examine them. The crystals are quite beautiful and shine beautifully. Li's mind recalls the words that crystals taken from monsters retain their properties only for 12 hours. Therefore, they need to be used as quickly as possible. Yunmu first wanted to touch the acupuncture point after returning, but it looks like he will have to do it here. The guy opens the working panel on the screen and begins to select the desired point. Since it's his first time doing this, it's exciting for him. A considerable number of dots light up on the human model. There are so many of them that at first Li is lost and does not know which one is better to choose. The teacher advises him to start by choosing the point of the saint. As for the single point of flow in the head, with the help of the power of thought, you can develop it much faster. That's what Li decides to do. Selects the point of the saint. He picks up a crystal and squeezes it with all his strength, from which it breaks into many fragments. The blue light turns on. Li puts his palms together in front of him and closes his eyes. An energy funnel begins to form in his forehead. Then the percentages display appears. The number starts to increase gradually. The guy gets kind of uncomfortable. Yunmu can barely stand on his feet. They are like cotton wool, and are not able to hold even their own body. Beads of sweat appear on his face. The guy exhales. His consciousness becomes clouded, and in general it is difficult to think about anything. The guy expected more, but the crystals lit up only 70% of the holy point. Lee hoped that it would be possible to touch the flow point with 1 or 2 crystals. He didn't think his data was that bad. An ad pops up congratulating you that the shadow system has been successfully updated. Lee has been waiting for this event for quite a long time. From this news, the guy begins to rejoice. He decides to launch the shadow system. Lee's own virtual shadow appears in front of him. It is also updated. She is wearing a warrior costume, just like Yunmu. With the current dimensions, the power of the shadow is equal to the host, and will not decrease. Since the host uses the holy point, the level of intelligence of the shadows has increased. The host can control the shadow's actions with the power of thought. This pleases the guy. Yunmu decides to use the shadow control function. Suddenly, he feels that his consciousness is leaving the physical body. It falls to the floor, and Lee's consciousness moves into the shadow. Lee raises his hands and sees that he is now in the shadow's body. This feature delights Yunmu. Now he does not complain that he has been waiting for a system update for 6 months. Now sleeping at night is just a waste of life. Lee opens the front door and goes outside. Now it's time for midnight fun. The street is illuminated only by moonlight. Yunmu sneaks on tiptoe so as not to attract too much attention to himself. The most important thing for him now is that Big Xing doesn't notice him. Lee is sitting on the couch. On the table and the floor there are fragments of crystals. The guy's head is splitting. That night, he fought monsters and absorbed the energy of crystals at the same time. The body barely endured such a load. But with the help of the crystals he received yesterday while fighting monsters, Lai was able to fast the holy point. This is also a lot. Lee picks up a piece of paper in his hand. The AU demons who met the guy yesterday were guarding this thing. Suddenly, the group called Lee and said it was time to get up and move out. On the machine, he hid this thing and said that he was already on his way. On the street, the guys are discussing their results, and says that the 4 crystals lit up 80% of the lake point in the palm of his hand. Kainlong's 5 crystals ignited only 75% of the sea point on his foot. Lee goes outside. They ask him how many points he lit last night. They believe that with the guy's data, he was able to light more than 1. He answered as there is 70% of the holy point. The guys gaped in surprise because it's less than theirs. After a few seconds, they start laughing. At the same time, the guys apologize for it. Everyone gets into their cars. Today, the group is going to go to take revenge on the leader of the demons Ale. 3 or 4 days flew by in the blink of an eye. The guys fought continuously. Great progress was waiting for everyone. Interaction in the group has also improved. The guys could understand each other without words. Soon they will be able to cope with high-level monsters, relying only on their own strength. Yunmu sneaked away every night to train in his shadow's body. He had already been able to ignite 4 acupoints, and his strength had doubled. Everyone is watched by people from above. All actions are monitored. A man in a black suit and sunglasses sits in the shade and watches a group of guys. A subordinate comes to him. The guy asks if his master was looking for him. Mr. reports that a dark horse has started in the city of Happy Wind. The rating of the city of Happy Wind exceeded all expectations. The man was interested in Lai Yunmu. The subordinate says that Lai Yunmu is an ordinary person and nothing special, but the group where he works scored a lot of points this year, and even bypassed the small detachment of Luo Jin, on which great hopes were pinned. The man regrets that he does not like the team of the Happy Wind City. Talents that he can't use become a big threat in the future. The subordinate asks what he means. To this, he says that several deaths of students occurred at the training camp in the central district. He doesn't consider it a common thing. Lai Yunmu and his buddies are on a mission. They decide whether they should attack a tribe of enemies. There are several shamans who have magic, as well as an elder who knows how to tame wild animals. Big Xing reassures Lai, saying that he has already checked everything and made sure that the elder is not in the tribe right now. They will get more points for a shaman than for some weak monsters. This is just a great chance for the team. Lin Shuang supports Big Xing's proposal. Her brother, as always, is not particularly happy with the girl's decisions. The girl says that they have all made progress during this time. Now it's time for them to try to defeat stronger monsters. Besides, Lin needs black crystals. Lee thinks about everything said. He understands that Sister Shuang helped them grow and gave her loot to the guys. The team goes on a mission. The bait job, as usual, is left to Njai. When everyone gets to their seats, they start waiting for Njai. This time it takes longer to lure monsters. Due to his long absence, Lee begins to worry. Shuang assures that nothing will happen to the guy. He had already lit the lake point on his right hand. His fighting skills are not inferior to the girl's skills. He himself does not know what progress he has made. Suddenly the sounds of footsteps begin to be heard, and Jai comes into view. A huge blue monster is running after him. The guy runs out into a more spacious area, stops and prepares to attack the enemy. In his hands is a double sword, and Jai looks confident. He runs forward at full speed and strikes the opponent's hands, from which he loses them. The team assumes combat readiness. The guys enter the battlefield. A new batch of monsters is just arriving. The battle begins. Members of the other team behave brazenly but confidently. They approach Jai and thank him for his efforts, while saying that they will take the points for themselves. The guys run on and start fighting with the remaining monsters. They deftly deal with opponents. In an instant, they manage to cope with the shamans of the Ayu demon tribe. Lee asks where these two came from. Lin Shuang replies that this is a team from another city. They intend to steal their points. It seems that Big Xing's team has such high results that others have already coveted them. Those two stop and say with a grin that they did not expect Yunmu to be so understanding. They also thank Jai for bringing the monsters. Big Xing tells the team to just leave. Qianlong is surprised and asks if they will just leave like that. Zhang says that the points have already been stolen, so they have nothing more to do here. Qianlong offers to deal with the villains, but he is told that there is no point in arguing with them. The guys from the other team happily decide that they don't care, despite the fact that they brazenly stole their points. The guys consider them cowards who can only hide. They start talking louder so that others can hear that the losers will not be able to come to terms with this in their hearts. And if they are men, then let them come back and fight. Big Xing's team is being provoked. Jiang hears everything perfectly, but it's not turning around yet. But when one blonde guy decides to attack him from behind, Big Xing turns around and prepares to fight back. His eyes fill with red. He hits the attacker with all his might, from which he flies off to the side and falls to the ground. The second guy stands in horror, not expecting such a turn of events. Big Xing tells them that they have already taken their points, so why haven't they gotten out of here yet? The guy is sitting on the ground and holding on to his damaged eye, from which blood is oozing. Zhang asks not to piss him off, but at this time, a signal rocket takes off. Everyone watches for a while as she rushes into the sky. Big Xing turns to his team and orders everyone to run. Not immediately realizing what is happening, the guys stand rooted to the spot. Suddenly, another monster jumps out of the bushes. He's growling, sharp teeth and a long tongue protrude from a huge mouth. He stands and looks straight at the blonde guy sitting on the ground. The same one looks with frightened eyes at the monster. With one movement, he strikes at the guy, from which large bloodstains begin to appear on his clothes. Blood flowed from the guy's mouth. The shirt is torn. He stares at one point with his eyes wide open. Beads of sweat stood out on his face. Everyone else is looking at it and doesn't know what to expect next. The team sees such a monster for the first time. The werewolf stands in a pose, ready to strike again. The monster growls and grins, and in an instant, he strikes a second powerful blow, from which the guy is thrown aside. The wounded guy's partner starts screaming. He can no longer watch his partner being torn to pieces. He takes off and runs to save his friend. Big Xing shouts at him to come back and not approach the monster. The werewolf swings and hits the guy with all his might. From such a powerful blow, he is driven into the ground. A column of dust rises and drops of blood scatter. Zhang looks at all this and realizes that things are very bad. He shouts to the team to run away. The monster turned out to be a devil dog, and Jai asks what they should do with those two guys. Lee says that they will not be able to help them already, therefore they need to save themselves. Big Xing shoots at the monster, but he doesn't care about these bullets at all. It only grazed the armor a little, but did not cause much damage. Lai Yunmu runs and tells everyone to get in the car. The guys are running with all their might. At the same time, Zhang continues to shoot at the monster in order to delay it a little. Suddenly, a small green monster jumps on the dog. He has some kind of whip in his hand. Big Xing says it's the elder of the Ayu monsters. The guys do not stop and run on, but the dog does not lag behind them. At some point, the group notices that they are no longer being chased by one devil dog, but several pieces. Zhang assumes that they have fallen into the trap of an elder of the Ayu tribe. That launched signal rocket gave a sign that they had entered the encirclement ring. Elder Ayu ambushed his tribe. He made the group think that he was not in the tribe, waited until everyone was caught in the encirclement to catch them all at once. Devil dogs also appeared ahead. The guys stopped and froze, looking at them. These dogs are even bigger in size. The team is surrounded from all sides. A little panic begins, and Jai is the most worried and asks what they will do now. Elder Ayu is very angry and dissatisfied with the fact that Big Xing's team has dealt with many of his tribesmen. He was going to kill everyone here. Lee is surprised by the talking monster as he sees this for the first time. He is standing with a whip and is going to attack the guy. Lee considers the monster a fool, despite the fact that he is the smartest elder of the AU demons. However, you can't tell from his appearance. The elder is furious that Yunmu is looking down on him. He starts forward as fast as he can and orders the dogs to deal with the group. Enraged devil dogs rush at the guys. At this time, Lee is planning the following actions. He asks if Sister Shuang can break through the weapons alone. The guy tells her to run to the car and then pick up the others on it. They will hold out until Lin Shuang returns. The girl asks if Yunmu is sure that they will hold out. The guy replies that, in fact, he is not sure of anything. But there is nothing else to do, you need to act. Otherwise, the dogs will just tear them apart. Yunmu pulls out a weapon and advises the girl to return as soon as possible, and he runs into battle. He easily deals with opponents. Even the rest of the team does not have to interfere much in the process. Lin Shuang mentally asks her friends to hold out for her arrival. Now the girl has a great responsibility. Suddenly, one of the dogs pounces on the girl. She barely manages to jump aside to evade the attack, before the girl has time to turn around, and Jai runs up to her to help. The guy takes the next frame on himself, from which all his armor shatters into small pieces. There's a wound on the guy's forehead. Lin Shuang worries about him, but he tells the girl to run and not look back. If the girl does not drive the car, none of the team members will survive. And Jai takes full responsibility to distract the monsters. He does everything to attract their attention. The guy swings and strikes at the opponent. He crosses swords and launches them at the monster. More creatures are running at the guys. Qianlong is in full readiness to defend itself. When two monsters run up to him, he deftly deals with them. But as soon as the guy relaxes, another creature jumps on him from behind. Qianlong doesn't see him because he's distracted. But a shot rings out. The monster falls to the ground. If it wasn't for Big Xing, the guy would have had problems. Lee also does not remain without the attention of enemies. They come without stopping, but the guy copes with their influx. Yunmu notices that there are more and more monsters. If this continues, they won't be able to hold out until Shuang returns. Suddenly, the monster grabs Jai and swings with all his might, holding the poor guy. He screams in fear. Big Xing tries to fix the situation with a gun, but it's not enough. The monster throws Jai, and he flies with great speed. The poor guy falls backwards and loses consciousness. Things are very bad. The guys are no longer able to resist. Lee is trying to think of something. Now the main danger is the devil dogs, and they are controlled by the elder of the demons, Ayu. Yunmu decides to start attacking the most important one. The guy accelerates, swings his sword and strikes at the elder. He does not expect such actions, but tries to dodge. The elder starts running away and shouting to his dogs to save him. But for some reason the dogs stopped and did not even try to help the owner. But it doesn't last long. The monsters turn to Yunmu and are about to attack him. The guy notices it. Since 3 monsters have moved on him, Lee has to use full force. He accumulates all the energy in himself. Red lightning starts forming around his body. Lee begins to float in the air. He's the one blocking the 3 devil dogs. This surprises the team. The Wanderers call Yunmu's current state the entry into the trance of the Holy War. There are many legends about this condition. The group is now wondering what other secrets the friend is hiding. Even the elder was surprised by the guy's condition. It can't help but be surprising, because one person is fighting against 3 devilish dogs. At the same time, Lin Shuang appears. The girl arrives in a car with a machine gun installed. She opens fire on enemies. The barely alive guys are very happy about Lin's help. The group had no doubt that the friend would come back and help them. Everyone is going to get into the transport. Lee is still dealing with the remaining dogs, but the guys notice that the guy's condition is not particularly good at the moment. The action takes place in the Union of Shooters. Employees notify their chairman that a new person has entered the Holy Warrior trance. The shooting was stopped, so confirmation that this is the one they need cannot be substantiated. The command comes to pass this information to the saint as soon as possible. Lee yawns in a relaxed way. Now you can breathe out calmly, because the danger is over. His whole body aches and aches after the battle. The guy sat down to rest on a rock. Qianlong notices that the guy is coming to his senses. He says they were a little worried about his latest condition. Yunmu replies that he doesn't know exactly what happened to him. He suddenly just felt like his whole body was filled with power. The guy looks at his hands and remembers that he could not suppress his desire to fight. Big Xing walks up to him and puts his hand on Lai's shoulder. He offers to translate the topic. Even though their lives were hanging by a thread, they made good money. In addition to 30 ordinary crystals, they now have 2 black ones. Xing believes that Lai saved all their lives. Therefore, he offers everyone to give him all their loot. This suggestion surprises Yunmu. He even feels awkward somehow. And Jai happily supports this idea and also believes that if it wasn't for the guy, they would have died. The other guys also support them. Yunmu gets up and says they shouldn't do it. He believes that this time they did their best, so the loot will be divided according to the rules. The guy says that, in fact, he didn't do anything special, but just did what everyone did. He was just trying his best to save his friends. They have decided, and they begin to divide everything. Everyone is tired, fighting for life. First, you need to find a place where you can set up camp and rest a little. Lee is taking a shower. After water treatments, he gets much better. It's like he's being reborn again. The guy drinks a Coke. A notification comes with congratulations from the system. Yunmu is awarded an award. He is given a weight box. It provides prizes in the order of a lottery. You can get various combat skills and weapons from it. Putting a can of Coke on the table, Lee begins to open his well-deserved prize. He is burning with impatience to find out what he will be able to get. Here the box opens. It fills the room with an unusual glow. The wind is rising, which has been blowing for some time. And then nothing happens. This makes Yunmu very angry, as he believes that he did not receive anything at all and that the box itself is empty. The system notifies him that Lee has learned a very interesting class of combat skill, leg rotation. After congratulating on getting a new skill, Lee is offered to spend internal forces on studying it. Without thinking twice, Yunmu agrees with joy. The learning of a combat skill starts. The floor lights up with a blue light, drawing a circle in the center of which there is a guy. The wind is rising. Lee feels his whole body overflowing with energy. The system notifies him about the successful acquisition of this skill. Yunmu can't wait to use this power in practice. Evening is coming. The monster is patrolling the area, holding a bat in one hand and a torch in the other. Lee, in the body of his shadow, sneaks into the territory and skips past the monster. He doesn't even notice him. Yunmu then strikes from behind. From this, the creature throws aside. The guy accelerates and deals with the rest of the monsters. They clearly did not expect that they would be attacked. Yunmu is successfully practicing his new skill. He does it pretty well. At this time, Lee's physical body is lying on a bed in a tent. A stranger is standing next to him. He has a photo of Lee in his hand. A person compares a guy by photo. Then the stranger apologizes to Yunmu, throws aside the photo, saying that he is too good and hinders the others. The guy hopes that in the next life Lee will remember that if you climb where you are not asked, you can get a return. Unsuspecting, Yunmu is happy with his new skill, thanks to which the enemy will not even be able to respond to a blow. Suddenly, an alarm sounds. It is reported that the owner's body is now in danger. The system asks him to return to his body. Lee asks the system to bring him back into his body as quickly as possible. The guy moves back. He opens his eyes and tries to strike at the offender, but he deftly dodges his blow. Lee asks the stranger who he is and what he needs from the guy in general. He replies that it doesn't matter. What matters is what happens tonight. The stranger says that Yunmu will die today. He breaks forward and runs straight at Lee. Seeing the impending danger, Lee pulls out a weapon, but the opponent knocks it out of his hands. Yunmu jumps back. The guy notes that the stranger is very fast, so much so that he can't even take a gun. The opponent begins to glow with a golden glow. It uses the energy of gold crystals. Lee doesn't understand why a shooter of such a high level came after him. The glow is amplified several times. The opponent tells Yunmu that he has a very fast reaction, and now he wants to see if the guy can hide this time. In a split second, the stranger flies up to Lee. The guy does not even have time to react, as he gets a knee in the solar plexus. The body is pierced by an unpleasant pain. Yunmu flies off to the side with such force that the tent breaks through. The guy understands that without a weapon, he definitely cannot be a rival to him. Lee is already beginning to think that his end is very close. The stranger, seeing that Yunmu is still alive, decides to save him from torment. He jumps up and strikes a few more blows, simultaneously saying goodbye to the guy. But suddenly Ling Shuang appears. The girl calls out to the guy and throws a sword into his hands for self-defense. He thanks his girlfriend for her help. The guy bears his sword and begins to defend himself. The enemy notices that Lee is completely different with a weapon. Lee gets into a fighting pose and holds out his sword in front of him, telling the stranger that that's enough, and that now it's time for Lee to respond to the blow. A serious battle begins between Yunmu and his opponent. Sparks fly from the contact of swords in different directions. The stranger says that despite the fact that the guy is completely proficient with a sword and a multi-tiered attack, he still lacks explosive power, so it won't work on the enemy. They fight again for a while, but then they pull away. The opponent begins to say that he is sorry to kill such a talented person. But business is business. There is no place for a personal attitude here, so he's not going to feel sorry for Lee. A fireball, charged with energy, lights up in the hands of a stranger. He launches it right into Lee, but he just stands there and grins. This confuses his opponent. He wonders why the guy is laughing. A notification comes from the system that the sword has reached the 4th stage. The technique goes to the next level. Thus, the forces of Lee and his opponent are compared. Now Yunmu can safely repel the blow of the claws of the fire dragon. The guy jumps up, doing a somersault in the air, after which he strikes the opponent. Thus, he loses his arm. After landing, Lee tells him that today he only took his hand away from him, but next time he will take his life. From the injury, the stranger begins to scream, experiencing incredible pain. Yunmu stands and watches all this. That guy starts shouting insults in his direction, saying that he will never forgive him for this. Confidently asks if he really wants to continue. He warns the opponent that if he does not hurry, he will bleed out and, in this case, life will leave him. The stranger says that he will still remember Yunmu this act. He jumps high up and is removed from the battlefield. Ling Shuang had been watching their battle all this time. The girl calls out to the guy, but before he has time to turn around, a sharp pain penetrates him, from which the guy bends back. Scared, Lin runs to help a friend. He tries to calm his friend down, saying that he is alright. The guy runs his hand over his mouth and notices blood on his palm. He thanks the girl for saving him, and it's good that the stranger didn't realize that Lee was bluffing. If they had continued the battle, he would definitely have died. The guys were told about what had happened. Big Xing sits and talks about everything. He says that Njai and Zio Kaiyan were on patrol tonight, but someone stunned them and did not kill them. It seems that the enemy's target was not their team, but only one Lee. Yunmu has already been patched up. He sits on the ground with a towel on his head and listens to the reasoning of his friend. Lin Shuang says that it looks like they are interfering with people of a higher level, so they sent an assassin to destroy their main force. And Jai asks if that's the case, why they only needed Lai Yunmu. After all, Sister Shuang also has great power. The girl claims that, after all, their family is quite famous. Even the people from the top wouldn't dare to attack them just like that. Besides, her mentor is a saint. Whoever is there will have to think about him first. Lee sits and thinks that he is considered a weak person without an origin. But he worked so hard. The guy decides he has to take revenge. Big Xing says that these days they will not do anything, but just rest in this place. Then they will see what to do. But this is after the wounds heal. Lee says he's fine. They barely manage to get to the top of the rating. If they rest, the results will just get worse. Big Xing claims that a guy's life is much more important than the results of the competition. Then he tells everyone to go to rest, and he himself will remain on the lookout. Lee gets up and thinks that they haven't finished yet, and that Zhang doesn't even think about washing his hands. The guy touches the blood left on the ground, asks the system to scan the blood. The scan begins. Then the blood source is established. The information is recorded in the database. But everything would be fine, except Lee said the word system out loud, so everyone heard it. When Big Xing asks about the system, Lai realizes that he has blurted out too much. He was found out. Morning came. Lee is practicing in the tent again. The energy has already penetrated the acupuncture points in the dream. The guy is grateful to the shadow for fighting monsters for him all these 2 days. Now he has a lot of crystals. Lee thinks that if he wants to advance further, he must create an armor made of flow energy crystals. But the next time he uses the shadow system, he should be more careful since last time he was almost exposed. Big Xing uses it too, so he won't reveal it. The system notifies Yunmu that his total experience is 10,000. He is offered to spend these units. Lee is sitting on the couch and thinking. These points can be spent on creating a second shadow. The guy turns and looks at his already existing shadow. If he has 2 shadows, then the results of hunting monsters will double. After a little thought, Lee decides to agree and create a second shadow. The guy tells the system to start this process. He is informed that his 10,000 units of experience have been spent. The creation of a new shadow begins. Black stripes begin to curl around Yunmu. The wind is rising. Then, his new shadow appears in front of the guy. This shadow looks more like a genie. Since now the guy has 2 of them, he needs to come up with names for them in order to distinguish. Otherwise, how will they know that Lee is calling them? Yunmu takes a marker and signs number 1 on one shadow and number 2 on the second. Shadows aren't exactly happy with such names. They think that the guy just doesn't understand. He then orders number 1 and 2 to return, after which Yunmu goes to the front door to go outside. After he leaves his tent, Lai bumps into Lin Shuang. The girl says that she has just received an alert that many of the strongest players were attacked by killers. Among them is Luo Jin's team. This really excited the guy, because his girlfriend is on that team, but Lin reassured him, saying that only Luo Jin was seriously injured. The others got a couple of scratches. The Union of Shooters is conducting a comprehensive investigation of this case. The Union is very concerned about all this, so the instigators of their city will be punished according to strict rules. Lee asks the girl why she stayed at the camp today and did not go to training with Big Xing. Lin begins to talk confusedly about the reason that, after watching for a few days, she realized that he is really a wonderful man. Therefore, Shuang specifically stayed today to talk to the guy alone. What the girl said is very embarrassing for Lee. He is even afraid to assume that this is exactly what he is thinking. The girl says that she thought about it for a long time and only now decided to say it. Therefore, Lee must definitely agree. Lin takes the guy by the hand and looks him straight in the eye. He begins to think that this very moment is coming. But then Lin Shuang says that she wants to learn sword techniques from him. The girl offers him to fight. Everything inside Lee instantly turns over. This is clearly not what he expected to hear. Without waiting for an answer, the girl tells him to get ready as she will start first. Yunmu agrees and prepare to attack. Thoughts are spinning in his head right now that this girl is crazy, and how could he expect anything from her? Now the guy thinks he's a complete fool. They take out their weapons, and the fight begins. Lin's every strike is fast and accurate. Yunmu can't even find her weak spots. But even so, he won't admit defeat. At the same time, the girl also notes that Lee is quite fast. The guy decides to go with the trumps and uses the return to the beginning punch. The girl uses a step attack, but it does not work as Yunmu repels him. Ling Shuang understands that there is no way for her to let down his vigilance. Then Lee gets her attention and they cross their swords. The girl did not expect that in the technique of 2 steps it is possible to combine techniques. Lin feels that she has very little time left. Then she thinks it would be better if she ran away now. If the girl continues to fight, she will only help him to make more and more strikes. It is necessary to understand the Yunmu technique. The 3rd stage is already beginning. The guy continues the attack. Then comes the 4th. When Lee strikes again, the girl catches the blade of the sword with her hands, from which her palm is injured and blood begins to ooze. Such a move surprises Yunmu. Lin says that since every attempt makes the guy stronger, then she will finish him off with just one. Then the girl swings her sword. Lin Shuang pretends to pierce the guy. Then the girl announces her victory. Both are standing and breathing heavily after such a battle. Lin's arm is injured, but the excitement covers all her pain. A small pool of blood formed on the ground. Lee looks at the girl madly and says that she is just crazy. When the guys return to the others, and Jai immediately notices the girl's bandaged hand. The guy is interested in what happened to her hand. Shuang raises her hand and says she just got scratched. Nothing serious happened. Big Xing tells how today the 3 of them went to explore the territory of the AU demon dumplings. After that battle, the AU demons became much more vigilant. Even if Lee's wounds have healed, it is unlikely that they will be able to attack the demons using the old method. But just now, a very interesting information reached Big Xing, thanks to which he came up with a new strategy. They will need Sister Shuang's help again. The guy smiles and looks at the girl. She's already afraid to imagine what he's up to. The next morning comes, and Jai informs Lai that all the things have already been loaded into the car. As soon as Sister Shuang is ready, they can leave. A girl appears. She doesn't really feel comfortable, as she is wearing a dress and shoes. Shuang looks fine, but the girl is uncomfortable. She asks if she has to be in it. Satisfied, Zhang says that this is necessary for their military tactics. In general, the idea is as follows. Lin should make sure that the elder of the demons Ayu paid attention to her. Big Xing girl doesn't like it very much, but for the sake of the team it is necessary to make sacrifices. Why Yunmu also doesn't understand what kind of tactics this is, in which the appearance of Sister Shuang is needed. Qianlong joins in the discussion and says how this morning, while scouting, they came across one elder who was giving orders to several demons. The order was to seize a beautiful girl and bring her to the elder. When Zhang heard this, he came up with this method. The stakes are high this time. Since Elder Ayu has a perverted fantasy, they should use it against him. Big Xing tells Lai to catch the bandits. It is advisable to start with their leader, and the rest of the team will take the elder by surprise. The group came to the designated area. The guys are hiding in the shelter and scouting the situation. There are 2 monsters on the territory. An uncertain Lin asks one last time if this is all a good idea, but Big Xing assures her that everything is going according to plan. He'll pretend he's chasing a girl. That way the demons can see her, and when they find the beauty, they will immediately take Lin prisoner and take her to the elder. The group will follow the girl. If everything goes well, they will find their nest. Then they will deal with the elder, and all the demons will be trapped. Big Xing can't resist making a face and calling it a love trap. Then the jokes come to an end, so the guys tune into work. Everything starts going according to the plan described by Zhang. The guys act out a scene that makes Lin Shuang uneasy. All these affected remarks disgust her. But suddenly, Big Xing stumbles and falls at the most crucial moment. And then everything starts to go downhill. The demons pick up Big Xing and carry him to the elder. The rest of the guys are watching this picture, and I don't understand what they should do next. Zhang shouts and orders the demons to let him go, but they don't even listen to him. Lin Shuang, frankly, was upset that she was not chosen, despite the fact that initially the girl did not like this idea at all. Now her self-esteem has been hit. This story has taken a fantastic turn. The guys don't know what to do now. Not only that, the plan was also captured by Big Xing. Yunmu decides to defuse the situation and takes matters into his own hands. The guy thinks that things are not as bad as they think. Sister Shuang logs into Big Xing's network and tracks his location. After the girl determines the exact location of the friend, Li begins his reflections. In fact, in their plan, only the bait has changed, from Sister Shuang to Big Xing. The guy assures them that they should not panic. They need to stick to the plan and work together with Zhang. This way they will be able to defeat the Demon King Io. The dark cave is lit only by candles. Big Xing is suspended by chains. The guy was dressed in a woman's sari. The shackles are too strong. There is no point in getting out on your own. The elder is informed that the girl is in place. He dismisses his subordinates and tells them not to disturb him. The demon has prepared for this long-awaited meeting. He is wearing a pantsuit with a tie. In the hands of expensive wine and a bouquet of scarlet roses. Poor Zhang understands that he got caught. The guy doesn't have to wait long. His buddies are dealing with the guards, clearing their way. The coordinates show that Big Xing is in the cave they came to, so this is where the Ayu tribe is located. Lin says that they should not delay, because the coordinates of the friend have not changed for a long time. The girl is sure that he has already been delivered to the king. And Jai and Xiao Qiang are a little behind, so they are warned to take this more seriously. The guys enter the cave. At this time, Big Xing tries to shut himself off from the elders, saying that he is sick of it. But it only turns the demon on more. He approaches the guy, takes him by the chin and sticks out his tongue. He suggests Zhang to play a game. But for this, the demon asks the guy to give his consent. At this time, the guys are running down the corridor. They have almost reached the right place, but they meet the guards. Yunmu says that attacking the Ayu monsters in their own cave is not a good idea. The guy suggests that Sister Shuang find another way. The girl claims that this is already the last road that leads directly to the bedroom of the Demon King Ayu. But fighting demons won't suit them at all in this situation. But suddenly Li notices the ventilation, and he has an idea. The guy mentally tells Big Xing that he will come for him soon. The shackles are falling off Big Xing's hands. The elder tells him the rules of the game. The guy will need to run away, and the demon will catch up with him. As soon as he gets caught, the demon will satisfy his appetite. Suddenly, the elder announces the start of the game and runs after the guy as fast as he can. But he decides not to run away, but to attack. Big Xing jumps up, causing the demon to miss. This maneuver gives the guy to deliver another powerful blow. Now the demon is no longer as friendly as before. Big Xing makes it clear to the opponent that the game is now over. The guy wraps the chains around him and fixes the position. But the monster is not going to give up so easily. He pulls out with all his strength, jumps up and then is going to strike. The elder attacks Zhang, but suddenly Yunmu comes to the rescue. He copes with the demon in no time. The rest of the guys are also pulling up to them. Everyone is concerned about Big Xing's condition. If they had stayed a little longer, he would, to some extent, have lost his innocence. The elder is very angry that people deceived him with the help of such a beautiful girl. It struck a chord with him. Zhang immediately decides to dispel the romantic illusions of the monster. He lifts up his top and says that he is a guy. This will amuse the group. But the elder is just furious. He accumulates energy in himself, which is why an energy sphere is formed around his body. A strong wind is rising. Now the team is no longer joking. The energy threads frighten Yunmu very much. Suddenly, a powerful energy explosion is heard, from which the cave collapses. Li is thrown into the street by the shock wave. The guy is surprised by such a powerful force that blew up the whole cave. Yunmu looks at the mountain and sees a fierce elder standing on its edge. He is preparing to commit revenge. The alarm sounds, warning about the detection of blood-colored energy. The chairman is warned that the Demon King Ayu has activated a spell of extreme magnitude. He had advanced to the level of a royal demon. This is a big problem for everyone, as magic can kill all participants. Panic begins. People can't understand why he was disturbed. The order of the competition is given, and recall all groups. Send the golden crystal shooters to evacuate the groups. Yunmu is sitting near a pile of rocks. The king runs up to him and is about to attack. An energy fireball forms in his hands. Yunmu understands that the opponent's strength has changed. He's much stronger now, and there's a chance Anda won't be able to beat him. Those threads that he had released earlier were already very disturbing and frightening to the guy. And now, even the king's body has become so terrifying that Lai can't move. While Yunmu is terrified into the stupor of his thoughts, the king launches fiery energy into him. The guy doesn't even notice it. Lin Shuang runs up to help him. The girl grabs the guy by the shirt and pulls him aside so that they avoid a collision with a blow. Lin, in rather harsh ways, brings the guy to his senses and does everything so that he gathers his strength. The guy's whole body is shaking. He needs to act as soon as possible. At this time, the girl tries to distract the monster and takes responsibility into her own hands. Lee looks around and notices friends lying nearby. The guy is interested in how they feel, but the guys do not hear him because they are unconscious. Suddenly, Sister Shuang gets hit by a blow that throws the girl back and hits the fragments of stones. Lee notices this. The girl falls to the ground without strength. The king is approaching her, about to deliver a fatal blow, but Yunmu intervenes and distracts him. The guy jumps up and strikes from the back of the opponent, right on the back of his head. The girl is glad that the guy has finally come to his senses. The monster no longer confuses Lee, but if he hadn't gotten up, he would have said goodbye to life. But this time the guy is going to speed up. There's a knife sticking out of his leg, and blood is trickling down to the ground. But that doesn't bother Yunmu. He tells the girl to get ready to run since she's alright. A car appears, in which Big Sheng is sitting. He orders his friend to get into the car quickly. This time everything did not go according to plan. Then it is necessary to retreat. The girl agrees, but says that first they need to find her brother and Xiao Qiang. But no one has time to answer as the king comes to himself again. And at this moment he is at the peak of his rage. The enraged king begins to threaten Lee. It lights up red and flies up into the sky. The demon believes that he is too underestimated, so he is going to demonstrate all his strength. In his hand, energy begins to form again, but already more powerful. Realizing that things are not going well, Lin Shuang tells everyone to run to the car. But the girl does not have time, as an energy explosion occurs, and the shock wave throws her back. But Yunmu catches the girl. They need to hurry as soon as possible. But Lin can't leave her brother. They run after the guys and grab their limp unconscious bodies and drag them into the car. Lai Yunmu is delayed. The guys are about to leave, but Shuang asks if they won't wait for the guy. Big Sheng says that if they don't leave now, there may not be another opportunity. If they want to defeat a king-level demon, a miracle must happen. The girl is very worried about Ha Lai, but Jun calms her down, saying that if there is a miracle in this world, then Yunmu is this miracle. Big Sheng steps on the gas pedal and they drive away. Shuang with Bream in his eyes looks into the distance. There is a large column of smoke and dust, because of which nothing is visible. But suddenly Lai Yunmu runs out of there and shouts for the guys to wait for him. They stop and pick up the guy. Big Sheng says that Li got out pretty quickly. The guy was going to exalt him as a hero. Lin is interested in how the friend managed to escape. Really defeated the Demon King. Yunmu replies that he couldn't handle the Demon King alone. He just realized that he becomes strong only within certain limits of the territory. The guy just managed to escape from that territory. Big Sheng praises Lai. They made a lot of noise that day. It's good that they got out. Yunmu remembers the moment when he was alone with the king. In fact, the guy didn't run away. He withstood the opponent's thunderbolt. It was given to him with difficulty, from which the guy fell down without strength. The enemy takes advantage of this and delivers another powerful blows that throw the guy over long distances. He stayed here for his friends. Thoughts were spinning in his head that they had most likely left a long time ago, since they did not know what was going on here. But in an instant, the guy decides not to go limp and show everything he is capable of. Li is going to show the enemy something interesting. But for this, he will have to thank him. With a satisfied face, the guy watches the king's reaction for a while, and then activates the shadow system. At that moment, being alone with his opponent, Yunmu activated his shadows and directed them at the king. Shadow 1 and Shadow 2 surrounded the enemy. At this point, Li admits that his main goal was not that his team could safely escape. The guy just didn't want them to see how he would deal with the demon. Still, not everything can be shared with others. The guy gives the order to the shadows to defeat the king. He is terrified trying to figure out what it is. He thinks it's some kind of monster, too. Without thinking twice, the king jumps high into the air and you linger there. But Lai Yunmu has prepared another gift for him in the form of another shadow that pounces on the enemy. Shadows deftly cope with the king. Li is about to return, but the wounded king is not going to give up just like that. But when Li says that he is not going to kill him, but just leave, this enrages the king as he longs for a fight. Yunmu pretends not to be strong enough and says that he will not be able to defeat the opponent anyway. Therefore, there is no point in fighting with him. The guy didn't say he wanted to fight the monster one-on-one. Only a demon had such a desire. Besides, this is a battlefield, and here there is an iron rule, there is only one winner. And at such a time to say that the enemy is a vile person is very stupid. Li announces that he is leaving, and he leaves everything else on the shoulders of his shadows. Yunmu returns from his memories and notices that Sister Shuang is starting to cough. The guy apologizes to the girl for everything, but she says it's not his fault. After all, this was his first time seeing a king-level monster. The fact that he was able to stay conscious is already a good thing. Ordinary people would have given up long ago, and would have given up. Big Xing also supports their conversation. The guy points to the other guys who are unconscious. This is a classic example of the usual reaction to a king-level monster when you meet him for the first time. But Li's willpower is quite great. Yunmu receives a notification from the system indicating that the battle with the king is over. Yunmu is fully confident that the shadows have coped with their task and dealt with the king. But at the same time, the system says that his shadows are dead. The news of the shadows' death upsets Yunmu. He didn't think that the shadows would be killed so quickly. The system reports that since the host's shadows have died, Li is asked to choose whether he wants to revive them directly or with his mind. Animating with the mind will allow you to raise shadows to the level of living shadows. Raising the level is worth 2,000 points. Without thinking twice, Yunmu agrees to revive the shadows with the help of reason. All the monsters in the area went berserk. Reviving and leveling up are successfully completed. All participants are warned that a monster of the royal level has appeared on the territory of the competition. For everyone's safety, the Union of Shooters decides to stop the competition. Everyone is asked to leave the territory. Big Xing is not particularly happy about this news. After all the points they earned can burn. But then the guy lets go of this thought and starts to hurry. Zhang wanted to ask Yunmu something, but Yunmu was fast asleep after everything that happened to him, as he needed to gain strength. At this time, the demon sits on the battlefield and looks at the dead shadows. Despite the fact that he dealt with them, the guy was able to escape. But the next time the king meets Li, he will definitely deal with him. Suddenly the shadows are resurrected. A strong wind rises around, which pushes the demon to the stones. He doesn't understand what's going on. Shadow 1 mockingly asks if the demon expected such an early meeting with him. The shadow, at the moment, feels a complete advantage over the enemy. Li decides to contact the king through his shadow. He immediately recognizes the guy. The shadow attacks the demon. He notes the speed of his opponent. The shadow strikes powerful blows. The demon feels that his strength is leaving him. He's getting weaker every time. The king decides to recite the spell again and gain strength with this. He tells Li, since he decided to return, it means it's time for him to say goodbye to life, and the demon will be happy to contribute to this. The shadow realizes that the opponent is beginning to conjure, but she doesn't like it at all when changes begin to occur in him. This time, through the shadow, Yunmu noticed that the demon had remained in the magic formation all this time. Shadows have a special vision, with which they are able to see what is beyond the control of the human eye. The opponent's magic formation is the source of his power. Therefore, it is necessary to come up with a way to destroy it. Having gained strength, the demon King Ayu is almost ready for a new battle. He pulls out his weapon and runs towards the shadow, but one dodges the blow. The demon gets annoyed because his opponent is fast enough. Li, in the body of a shadow, strikes from the back. The demon dodges. They fight for a while. At one point, when Yunmu tries to jump up, the king grabs his leg and launches him to the side. Li flies across the field and flies up to the magic formation. This is exactly what he needs, since he is going to destroy this magical system. The demon King Ayu froze, watching in horror as the guy destroyed his magical formation. He can't believe that in all this time, some person has dared to do this. Most of all, he was surprised by the fact that a person is able to see it. Li puts his hand into the field, after which the formation begins to collapse. The demon becomes enraged, because his assumptions were justified. The king strikes at Yunmu. He feels a decent pain. Although the demon can no longer feed on energy, but its strength is still much greater than Li's. He can't give him the opportunity to attack, so you need to defeat the demon with one blow. This blow just can be used here. Yunmu jumps into the air and does a somersault there, but he is in no hurry to strike. This behavior amuses the demon. Just as he is about to seize the moment and attack, Yunmu tells him that he is not his only opponent. The demon really forgot about the second shadow. It is she who appears behind his back. Having come to his senses late, the demon king Ayu is unable to evade, so he takes on the powerful power of the shadow. Lee takes advantage of the moment, flies up to the demon and joins the joint attack. Since the attacks are coming in a continuous stream, the king cannot fend them off. Lee knows that a frontal attack against the monster will not help, so he decided to attack continuously. The guy wants to pulverize the demon. It seems that this time, this seemingly capable person will really deal with the demon. The demon king Ayu is worried that he will die so insulted. He's still trying to resist. The demon grabs Lee by the arm and clings to him, sitting on his back. The king says that if someone dies today, it will be all together. After these words, the demon begins to swell. The guy understands that the main goal of his opponent, at the moment, is self-destruction. The demon king Ayu wants to take Yunmu to his grave with him through self-destruction. The guy's whole body is squeezed by the powerful musculature of a demon. The pressure is so strong that it begins to darken in the eyes. Suddenly there is a very powerful fiery explosion. Everything is flying in different directions. Not far from the explosion site there is a detachment of cloudy sky. They freeze in surprise and look in the direction of what is happening. The group can't believe that someone has dealt with a king-level demon. They were a little late. Then people notice that a silhouette is moving in the haze. Lee comes out of the haze. People pay attention to his armor and think that he is a man of the Temple of War. At this moment, Lee wakes up in the car. Big Xing notices his friend's anxious awakening and wonders if everything is fine with him. Mentally, Lee exhales as he managed to break the connection with the shadow in time. Otherwise, he would be finished. The system congratulates the guy on his victory over the strongest Ayu demon king in this zone. Yunmu is glad that he was able to protect number 1 and not die himself. He is receiving units of experience and inner strength. He also received units of void energy, the king's crystal, as well as his soul. He is offered to take the destructive power of the king for himself. Yunmu cries out with joy from such a large amount of reward. Zhang pays attention to this because the guy scared him. But Lee refers to the greater speed. Yunmu notices some monsters on the street. They've caught someone. Big Xing looks closely and recognizes the girl. This is Lai Tzu. It's strange that she's here alone. Lee offers to save the girl because they are from the same institute, so they have to help each other. Without waiting for his friend's answer, Yunmu jumps over the car door. Zhang shouts to turn over because it's quite dangerous. Big Xing doesn't understand why a guy who has just woken up is so active. Suddenly, from the back seat, Lin Shuang assumes that Lai has fallen in love with this girl. At this time, Lai's eye fights off monsters with 2 swords. All the monsters seem to go berserk. They will not rest until they reach the goal. Suddenly, one of the monsters knocks the girl down with his tail. Lai's eye falls to the ground and thinks that now she will come to an end. But Lai Yunmu appears and effortlessly grabs the monster by the throat with one hand. The guy turns to the girl and asks if she is injured. Astonished, Lai's eye says that she is fine. Lai Yunmu deftly copes with monsters. The girl is very pleased that such a guy stood up for her. She has heard a lot about him and considers him a wonderful warrior. Big Xing calls out to the guys, leaning out of the car and says it's time for them to leave here. Seeing what Zhang is wearing, Lai's eye starts shouting that the guy has a perverted fantasy. From surprise, he begins to justify himself and cover himself. Yunmu offers to give the girl a ride. She gladly accepts this offer. The action takes place in the Institute of the Happy Wind. Yunmu is trying to organize help for his injured friends. Some students are watching the guy. The dark-haired guy with a cigarette in his mouth wasn't particularly interested in the latest news, so he wouldn't know if. Another, red-haired guy begins to tell that Yunmu is in the team that has risen to the 30th place in the ranking of Happy Wind City. The narrating guy is glad that now the city of Happy Wind will no longer be trailing, thanks to the merits of the guys. A teacher approaches Lee from behind and gives him a friendly slap on the back of the head. The guy is very confused because of this and begins to resent it. The teacher offers to help Tom, but the guy says that everything is fine with him, so he asks not to be touched. Yunmu finds the teacher's behavior quite strange, so he tries to move away. Lai's eyes are looking for Liu Nanjai, since they haven't seen each other for a long time, and the guy has already missed him. But Lai Tzu calls out to him. The guy greets the girl without interest. They exchange a few phrases a little. Yunmu then continues to search for Liu Noji, not noticing how Lai's eye is going to call him somewhere. The guy was told that the girl had to come back already, as one student saw their car nearby. Lai's eye notices that Yunmu is worried about Liu Noji. The girl decides to ask if they are dating, but the guy does not consider it necessary to share this information with a friend. This makes the girl very angry, and she decides to vent her jealousy, saying that nothing terrible happened to Nanjai. Got off with only light scratches, probably resting already. It even calms the guy down and he cheered up. Then, Lai decides to invite Yunmu to have dinner together. She wants to repay him for saving her life. Lee invites him to the dorm. Yunmu apologizes and refuses as he has business waiting for him in the evening. But he says he will invite her another time. The guy says goodbye to the girl and indifferently goes on. She stops and calls the guy. Yunmu stops and looks at the girl questioningly. She asks when he will invite her. This behavior confuses Lee a little, and he decides to get out of it, saying that some other day. Big Xing is watching all this from afar and is touched by what is happening. From the outside, he looks like a man with a perverted fantasy, peeping at the others. Lai Yunmu returns to his home and sits down on the sofa to rest for a while, and, at the same time, watch the king's award. The guy rubs all the received things, when suddenly he stumbles upon some very unusual crystal. Yunmu's entire attention is focused on this crystal. It seems to him that this stone is Waidu, about which there are many legends. When the guy is convinced of this, he runs to another room and searches for information about this stone in books. The Waidu stone is a very valuable treasure. After perfecting, he can create a whole separate world. A person who perfects this stone will be able to control the created world. It looks like this time Lee is a thorny treasure. It was not for nothing that the demon king Ayu blew himself up. The guy tells the system that he wants to improve this stone. This will require 30,000 experience points. It's very expensive by Yunmu standards. He believes that the system has decided to rob its own owner. After a little thought, Lee agrees. He doesn't have a choice anyway. The improvement of the mineral is very fast and successful. Lee is immediately transported to a new world. A spacious starry sky surrounds him. In his entire life, the guy had never seen anything like this. The world created by the stone leads Yunmu to an incredible delight. But despite the vastness of it, if a guy can only sit on a small piece of the plane, on which there is practically no space. For a while, Lee just sits on the floor and throws a stone in his hands. At some point, the guy does not catch the stone, which causes it to stick into the slab. In an instant, the size of the plate increases. Lai is surprised to see a piece of the slab growing, feeding on Waidu crystals. Yunmu is very happy and goes to mine stones. After the guy feeds the plate more than 100 crystals, he gets very tired. However, this fatigue is definitely worth it. Lee doesn't know if increasing the plate will help him at all. He doesn't even know why he needs all this. Moreover, he spent more than 100 crystals. Now the guy doubts and thinks whether his spending is thoughtless. The system notifies him that the dimension belongs to him. It is called the Star World. The system also warns that a new force has been born in the host's body, the force of the world. Since the host's current star world is at a low level, the power of the world can only be replenished from attacks in the outside world. Yunmu believes that all this is necessary for defense. Right now, Lee's world is small, so he is able to absorb only a small amount of power. The guy thinks that this is cruel on the part of the system, since 70 square meters are quite large. In the end, Yunmu spent half a day on all this. In addition, 30,000 experience points and more than 100 crystals. The most annoying thing is that he can't use this thing. The system says that this stellar world only needs a sufficient number of crystals, and then it will not be equal. The guy already wanted to throw more crystals, but then he saw through the trick of the system. After all, this is a bottomless abyss, because of which he will simply go bankrupt. But still, for a while, Lee just doubts, but then the thought of adding more crystals visits his head again. Yunmu is completely immersed in the development of his world. He gets hooked on it, and no longer notices how he wants to invest more and more crystals in his brainchild. There is a call from Qianlong. The guy hurries Lee to change clothes faster and run to the square. Yunmu asks his friend to tell him more specifically what happened there. The action takes place on the square of the Institute of the Happy Wind. Half a day everyone gathered a group. Lai thought that Big Xing had run into trouble again. The guy is called Light Su. Yunmu is not particularly happy to see her, since she, during all this time, managed to bore him. Lee tells the girl to go to her team and not hang out in theirs. Lai Zai doesn't understand why the guy is so insensitive. Everything unfolds a little more interestingly when Liu Noji suddenly runs up to Yunmu and jumps on his back for joy. The girl tells how she was worried about the guy, as she heard that a murderer was sent to him, as well as to Liu Jin. Lai Zai is angry because the guy treats her coldly. Suddenly there are guys in the group of which Liu Noji is also a member. Relations between the students remain tense. Liu Jin and his friend again touch on the topic of rich friends. Zhang says that they haven't seen each other for so long, and they haven't gained any strength. But in insulting people, they have moved directly. Jin's friend approaches Big Xing and grabs him by the shirt, thereby provoking him to come out for a showdown. But the guy remains steadfast. It won't budge for a while. Then Jun says he doesn't want to fight, but if the guys want it so much, he can arrange it for them. Suddenly a teacher appears and cools their ardor. He also asks Lin Shuang to give him his weapon. For a while, the guys still exchange caustic phrases, but then everything subsides. The teacher asks everyone to pay attention to him. He informs about the appearance of the rating of the competition. The city of Happy Wind entered the 50 Manga for the first time. Now he's in 48th place. The teacher is pleased with the merit of the students, therefore, it was decided to reward all participants. The teacher says that, in the next hour, a treasury will be opened for the issuance of awards. Tang takes everyone there so that everyone can choose a gift for themselves. The action takes place in the treasury of the Happy Wind. The room itself is very large. Zhang can't help but point out that this is quite an ordinary size. His house is the same, since this time everyone will enter in turn, in accordance with the rating. Therefore, now they are going to announce the students' places in the rating. In the first place is the team of Big Sheng. All the students are surprised that the guys managed to overtake Luo Jin's team. All the canoes of the team are happy. Only Yunmu believes that this way they will only attract the attention of many people. And that's not very good. Hu Wu approaches Li and says that they could not get the first place. After all, only a year ago the guy woke up and could not score so many points. Lai Zai stands up for the guy, saying that she saw Yunmu's technique. The girl is sure that the guy is just talented in battles. Hu Wu tells Lai Zai to mind her own business, and the guy himself continues to provoke Yunma. The guy says that in the competition he relied on Lin Shuang all the time. And now, Lai Zai will also stand up for him. It all boils down to how challenging Li to a fight, and the guy agrees to it. Yunmu takes off his jacket and prepares for battle. Lin Shuang immediately says that Hu Wu was not lucky at all. This guy could get anyone, but it's up to Lai Yunmu. Li's buddies are starting to support him. The battle begins. Hu Wu releases energy in the form of fire, but Lai Yunmu deftly and calmly evades. The guy does not give up and continues to strike, but all in vain. Li avoids them, too. Yunmu endures these antics for a long time, but then strikes, from which Hu Wu flies away. Everyone watching stands in amazement. Li's friends are happy. Hu Wu is not going to give up. He gets up and runs back to Li, but in response, they will receive another powerful blow. Yunmu is becoming more and more authoritative in the eyes of others. They didn't think the guy was strong before. Hu Wu is lying on the ground exhausted. Blood is streaming from the nose. He regretted provoking this fight. A teacher came up to them and separated them. Then he invites everyone to go to the treasury. Li agrees with the offer, since all this boredom has already taken up too much time. Yunmu was already heading towards the room, when suddenly Hu Wu rises and takes a knife out of his pocket. They're trying to warn the guy. Hu Wu rushes at Li with furious eyes, saying that he will never forgive him. But Yunmu deftly dodges and breaks the guy's arm. The people around me are learning the lesson, and now they understand that it's better not to touch Yunma next time. Hu Wu falls to the ground and writhes in pain. He shouts threats at Li. The guy believes that Yunmu intentionally broke his arm, so he is going to report him to the union, after which Lai will be punished. But Tang says that this is not bad at all, since Hu Wu was going to kill the guy in general. Therefore, the teacher will report to Hu for threatening the student's life. Yunmu goes with his friends to the treasury. Lai Zai approaches the guy and asks if he thinks he went a little too far, breaking Hu Wu's arm. Li replies that if he is not taught a lesson, then he will get them again. Since he already tried to kill Yunma today, the guy can't just leave it like that. Li also asks the girl to remember one important thing: never allow enemies to counterattack. With impatience, the guys enter the treasury. This is a class of vault. As soon as they enter the room, huge steels with treasures open up to their eyes. And Jai comes to the east about what he saw. That's what class A is for. No money can buy these things. Sister Shuang calls Lai to look at her find. This thing is much more interesting than knives and swords. The ball of technology transfer. The girl throws the ball to the guy. He doesn't expect this, but he catches the sphere. This ball contains the killer technique of the Northern Lights. This is a technique that instantly strengthens the skills of swordsmanship. If you add it to the guy's fighting style, then it will fit perfectly. Yunmu believes that this technique seems to have been created for him. The guy is thinking about choosing her. He is also warned by the system that this is a very valuable item that the owner should not miss. It's not about the ball. Yunmu looks to the side and notices a bow hanging on the wall. Lin Shuang tries to convince him, saying that nothing else will suit him so well. But the guy doesn't hear her anymore. All his attention is focused on this weapon. Yunmu removes the bow. This is a very old thing that has been gathering dust here for years. A raven is depicted on the side of the bow. The guy decides that he will take it as a reward. Ling Shuang is outraged. How come? Because of this old bow, he won't take the killing technique of the Northern Lights. Yunmu says that as soon as he saw this bow, he realized that it was his destiny. Without listening to anyone else, the guy leaves the room. The girl thinks that he acted very stupidly. Her brother comes up to her and asks if she has chosen anything for herself. He also tries to support his sister that she was right. But the girl is not in the mood, so she gives the sphere to her brother and says that he can do whatever he wants with it. The guy looks at the ball, not understanding why he needs it, but then decides to take it. Lai is heading to his home, but Big Xing is calling him. The guy tells his buddies that he is in a hurry to go home to study his new bow. And Jai approaches the guy and hands him a ball with the killer technique of the Northern Lights. He says it doesn't suit him. Besides, the guy is sure that his sister chose the ball to give it to Li. Only she herself will never say it. Yunmu picks up the ball. Sister Shuang didn't say that it was a very expensive thing. Haiyanlong advises Lai to take this ball. The Hu family is big. Many will want to take revenge on the guy. Therefore, good weapons will not be superfluous for Yunmu. Haiyanlong is sure that Lin Shuang is of the same opinion. Everyone supports the idea of taking this sphere. Therefore, Li decides to agree to take it away. He thanks the guys for their advice. The guy understands that he has not felt friendly warmth for a long time. Yunmu was very tired that day. He falls on the bed and decides to rest a little. He asks the system to learn the killer technique of the Northern Lights. In order to study it quickly, you need to spend 4,000 experience points. Yunmu decides to spend the points. He's already used to the system always trying to steal from him. The ball rises into the air and describes circular movements. The killer technique of the Northern Lights has been mastered. Every time, after such a thing, Li feels that they are trying to force skills into him. A bow appears in front of the guy. Yunmu knew that this was the call of fate. The system congratulates Li on receiving a battle bow with the runes of the 7th monster Waidu. The new bow with the runes of the 7th monster Waidu contains the soul of a warrior whose hands grew from the wrong place. Li believes that this warrior was trying to summon him. But even if the soul of a warrior is contained in the bow, it is useless. The guy can level up the system again after raising the level. Yunmu removes the seal, after which the level rises. This time the promotion went much faster than before. Li thought that this time it would last 6 months. Everything starts spinning before my eyes. Yunmu doesn't understand what is happening to him right now. He finds himself in a huge cage. Suddenly someone asks the guy how he got in here. At first, Li looks at the man in silence. Then he asks if he is the raven that the guy came to remove the seal from. Li replies that he needs strength. He is ready to exchange freedom for this power. But Raven thinks it's all nonsense. He doesn't believe the guy is capable of freeing him. Yunmu tells the system to remove the seal. It takes a lot of internal machinery to remove the seal. But right now, Li doesn't have enough internal technique. Yunmu asks that in this case everything he has be used. The fence of internal equipment begins. This is just enough to break a link in the chain a little. The process is completed, and now Li's internal technique is at 0. Raven says that the guy talked so much, and in the end did quite a bit. He called the guy a liar. Raven says that he was not chained with a simple seal. This one consists of 3 layers. Li broke only the very top of the first layer. There's still a lot left. But Raven agrees to give the guy some of his power. He gives Li the opportunity to control 3 crows who will listen to his orders. If Yunmu frees Raven, he will give him more power. The guy rejoices at such generosity and promises that he will definitely help the Raven. In the end, it's self-help too. Raven was already tired. He is tired of talking, so he says goodbye to Yunmu. At this time, the guy is transferred back again, and he finds himself in his apartment, lying on the bed. Li is very exhausted, so he falls asleep. Morning comes. Yunmu comes to Wang Wen's house. It seems strange to Li that such old buildings exist in this century. Van Wen's house is a pawn shop. A good-natured little old man approaches the guy. He asks what brought Li to his house. The man says that they own a very extensive assortment. They can also help him evaluate the thing. In general, according to him, Li will be satisfied after the services rendered to him. But the guy says he didn't come here for shopping. He asks the old man if they have any contraband goods. The man realized that Li had come to discuss business. Therefore, he invites the guy to come and talk inside. Yunmu is offered a cup of tea. The old man asks if the guy has come to sell him some valuable thing. Li says that it is not a valuable thing at all, and asks to name the price. The guy takes out the crown of the demon king Ayu and puts it in front of the man. Old Li seems like a very ordinary guy, but he is surprised that he has such a valuable thing. The man offers 150,000, but Yunmu says that this thing is worth more. But it turns out that Li misunderstood him. He offered him 1,500,000. The old man says that Yunmu is a promising young man with such strength. Therefore, he would like to make friends with a guy. Lee believes that Wenwen is not deceiving him. Therefore, he suggests that Tom take a look at one more thing. This time, the guy offers the military uniform of the Elder of the Demons AU, and indeed a whole set. Without a doubt, Vanwin agrees to buy everything. He gives the guy 1200. Yunmu is interested in what price he will be able to purchase a parchment with inscriptions. A parchment with the runes of the 5 Waidu. The old man advises him to save this thing, and he's not going to take her. He also advises no one else to just show this parchment. Lee swallowed with excitement. At this time, Sister Yunmu earns extra money, entertaining others in a bear costume. The girl is very tired. She didn't think it would be so hot in this suit. The money Yunmu earned was almost all gone. She understands that her brother cannot pay for his father's treatment alone. This is a very big expense for one person. The girl wants to try to help the guy. At the hospital, she asked for a postponement for a few more days. Remembering this, the girl received an SMS on the phone. Here it is indicated that a transfer has arrived on her card, and it is required to confirm it. When a girl sees that she has been credited 300,000 yuan, she is shocked. Sister doesn't believe it's from Yunmu. Evening is coming. The girl returns to the hospital. He enters the ward and informs his parents about his return. At this moment, she sees that there are strangers in the ward. Parents have no idea who it is. They said that they came to them after the girl left and are still here. One man asks the girl if she is Mrs. Liu Ruyan. She was sent 3 helmets to Wade. The girl was asked to sign. Liu agrees, signs the document. At this moment, she thinks how expensive these things are. She is warned that everything is already set up. The girl just needs to put them on and run. People are leaving. Ruyan thanks them and says goodbye. After leaving, the girl hurries her parents to put on their helmets. She is sure that her brother sent them. The mother is a little doubtful and asks if the girl is sure that there are no problems with these helmets. Liu says that since Yunmu bought them, there shouldn't be any problems. The girl finds the power button and presses it. The screen lights up in front of my eyes. In one ear, she moves to a completely unknown place for her. This place seems very impressive. Liu then notices that his father's legs have fully recovered after being moved. The man understands that his legs no longer hurt. Moreover, he can safely jump. His mother asks him to calm down. Suddenly Lai Yunmu appears. He greets his parents. They haven't seen each other for a long time, so the guy is very happy to see them. The mother rushes into her son's arms for joy. She noticed that Lee had grown up. The guy becomes a little uncomfortable, since he has long considered himself an adult. They have a relationship with their father like a best friend. They can even make fun of each other, so this time is no exception. Yunmu asks how the sister feels involved. She took care of her father all this time alone. She must be tired. But the girl thinks that Lee is much more tired. After all, he was earning money for them all the time. The mother asks where they are going now, but Yunmu says that they don't need to go anywhere, since from today this place will be considered their home. Yunmu says goodbye to his parents and goes about his business. They are waiting for him to come to dinner. Enough time has passed since all the students were dismissed and the competitions were stopped. Lee is bored. He really wants to go to the arena and fight with the monsters of Waidu. But there is now a direct video surveillance. If they find out about the guy, he will get into big problems. Suddenly a guy comes up with an idea, which he immediately puts into practice. The guy reincarnates, disguises himself and enters the Waidu dimension. Now, even if Lee shows himself to the fullest, no one will recognize him. The guy enters the Waidu arena. There he calmly copes with monsters and his rivals, after which he comes out victorious. The guy satisfies his lack in battles. Yunmu wins 10 times in a row. Suddenly his guide appears and praises the guy for doing a great job. But all the same, Lee is already getting tired of fighting random opponents at this time. Suddenly, he gets the idea of a challenge to a duel. Da Baiabe challenges the guy to fight. Xia Guodig also wants to fight Lai. Tang Ruachan, one of the candidates in the 10 Panga of the City of Heavenly Clouds, did not meet any worthy opponents for the whole day. The guy is already starting to consider all this a waste of time. While Tan is sitting in front of the monitor, waiting for someone suitable, other students are whispering behind his back. They are his fans, so they want to get an autograph from the guy to the point of insanity. Having plucked up the courage, the girls approach Yachin. It's an honor for a guy to give an autograph to people who are interested in him and his successes. A guide rabbit approaches Tan and also asks him to sign a paper. First, the guy, as if nothing had happened, signs. But then he is surprised when he realizes that he has signed a call to fight. The guy sits down on the seat and starts shouting into the void, asking who lost Pedro. But the hare says he came here of his own free will. Together with Pedro, Tan comes to the cafe. The conductor asks the waitress to bring him one sundae, for which Jachin will pay. The guy is sitting and looking at the invitation. He is surprised that someone is still writing invitations to the fight on paper. It would be possible to just send an email. He brought the invitation personally and figured out how to get Ruachin to sign it. Tan is outraged that he was tricked into all this. He himself did not want to sign anything. The action takes place in the Waidu arena. Yunmu is sitting and waiting for his opponent with whom he will fight. The guy has been waiting for a long time, but so far no one has appeared. He hopes Pedro won't let him down. Suddenly Tang Ruachin appears. The guy asks if Pedro came from Yunmu. Lee confirms everything, considering the conductor a cutie. Tan says that he has seen such cuties who eat sundae with an amount of 36.6. By the way, the guy noticed that Lee returned the money to him. The dialogue of the guys is being broadcast online. People on the street gather to watch the upcoming fight. Many people already know Tan. Girls are a fan of the guy, but we haven't heard much about Yunmu yet. The novice is considered much weaker than Jachin. Someone assumes that Lee is a fan of Tang, but the girls notice that Yunmu is very handsome, so they want to become his fans. Someone does not support such an idea and continues to be a fan of Jachin. Tang assumes that Lai is the shooter of ordinary crystals. He asks if he knows that his opponent is a silver crystal shooter. Yunmu knows about all this. Tan thinks the guy is brave, but he does not plan to give in at all. That's exactly what Lee needed. Otherwise he was worried that Jachin wouldn't want to fight. The guys start fighting. Yunmu notes the guy's agility, but this is not surprising, because he is the most talented in the younger generation of the City of Heavenly Clouds. Yunmu admits to Tang that he admires his skills and abilities. Jachin looks closely at Lai during the fight. The guy understands that his opponent Lai Yunmu is not so simple. It can't be that a simple crystal shooter can compete with him. Tang decides to ask directly if Yunmu is true at the level of simple crystals. He says that his data is indicated in the information about the enemy. So yes, now he is at the level of simple crystals. A satisfied smile shines on the guy's face, which says the opposite. Lightning forms around it. Lee starts attacking. He moves at a very high speed, making dexterous movements. These actions surprise Tan. Jachin is forced to use the 18 steps of the Demon of Heaven technique. Although his technique is strong, but the guys are definitely different in strength. If they had a difference of just one step, then maybe Tang would have been able to win. Lee offers to try out the mad sword blow to Tom. Attacks require extreme concentration, which is why it takes a lot of effort. The guys are already feeling tired, but Tan is grateful to Pedro for bringing them together in battle. Now Jachin does not demand back his 36.50. Lee once again confirms the fact that Pedro is just a cutie. The guys are smiling at this funny little respite. At this time, the audience is watching the fight in full. They don't have time to catch what's going on there, as the guys are moving too fast. People have time to notice only some flickering shadows. Many girls like Lai Yunmu even more. But despite this, they still remain loyal fans of Jachin. His technique of the 18 steps of the Demon of Heaven just drives them crazy with delight. However, the girls note Lee's ability to resist their favorite. Interest in Yunmu continues to increase by the second. At one point, Tan manages to stab Lee in the face. The guy jumps back. Jachin says that Lai's talents are useless with such a difference in strength. However, Yunmu objects and grins. Of course, it's not for nothing that Tan is a candidate in the 10 Manga. He resisted even the 3-level strike of the frenzied sword. But, since this is not enough, Lee decides to try to make a 6-level punch. Yunmu launches an attack, although Tan manages to evade so far. However, the guy notices that Lee's attack has become stronger. At the 5th level, Jachin briefly interrupts Yunmu's stubbornness by striking him. However, this does not prevent the guy from moving to the 6th level of attack. Lee's aura scares Tang. He doesn't believe that a guy can have such power at this level. The 6th level attack is unknown to Jachin. The guy does not understand how in such a short time the enemy was able to achieve such progress. Lee piles up attacks, and all of Tang's previous strikes have served as fuel for him. Jachin has no way out. Yunmu really surprises Tang. It seems that the outcome of their battle depends on one blow. In his last attack, Tang contributes 100% of his strength. He uses the fist of the heavenly demon dragon. But at the moment of the attack, the guy felt that he could not stand it anymore. In the end, it turned out that way. The winner is Lai Yunmu. The crowd can't believe that Tang Ruachin lost to a beginner with the level of ordinary crystals. Many people are starting to like Lai Yun even more. Someone is going to subscribe to the guy. At this time, Yunmu is being watched by Big Xing. It analyzes the attacks that were used by the guy in battle. It becomes more and more interesting for him to learn new things about his friend. Almost exhausted, Lee walks away from the completed battle. For his victory, he gets 98 points of his opponent's energy. No wonder such a master has so much energy. The guy asks Pedro to keep looking for opponents for him. Now Yunmu wants to fight boxing, and there he wins. The audience comes to an amazing delight watching the success of the guy. People are beginning to realize that this is not an easy luck at all. Everyone wants to know as much as possible about the guy, and most importantly, where he came from. Lee was completely tired. Fighting 2 masters in a row is not an easy task. Suddenly, the guy discovers 30,000 money on his account. He asks Pedro where such a large sum came from. The guide explains that this is money for watching the battle. Simply put, when the number of subscribers reaches 10,000, the system charges money for views. After that, everyone who wants to watch the guy's fights will have to pay. Yunmu, without knowing it, became a star. But he's had enough for today. He asks Pedro to shut down the system. Lee thinks it's not too late to come home, because his parents are waiting for him for dinner. Suddenly the guy receives a call. He is Liu Noji. The girl asks if he has seen the battles of the same Lai Yun. The girl screamed with delight. Lai already recoiled from surprise and asked her not to scream. But the girl says how can she not spend when Yun is so beautiful. Now everyone in the city is discussing it. But suddenly the girl sharply asks if Yunmu is the same Yun, because they both have a mad sword, and the names are similar. The guy at first thought that he was discovered, but then says that he is not so great. The girl agrees with him and translates the topic. She assumes that Yunmu is a disciple of some old sect, and Lai Yun is his brother. The whole clan owns the mad sword technique. The girl does not wonder why they are both such great fighters. Liu continues his theory, saying that their kind is quite frightening, despite the fact that they try to hide. Lee likes this theory. After all, he has no patron, but he can make everyone think that he is a disciple of the secret world sect, so the guy can avoid a lot of problems. Therefore, the guy decides to confirm the girl's words by saying that Lai Yun is his brother. Yunmu told Liu not to tell anyone, as he wanted to keep the secret a secret. The girl promises to keep it. They sell out and hang up. After this conversation, Liu begins to wonder why Lai only told her. From this, for some reason, the girl felt joy in her soul. The Lai Yunmu that Liu Noji mentioned had definitely invented a sect for himself. He found an excuse for his extraordinary strength and invented a patron for himself. To advance, Lai Yunmu created another character, Lai Feng. And then Lai Yunmu fought with his own doppelgangers. And since these 3 appeared in the arena at the same time, Lai Yun, that is, Lai Yunmu, no longer suffered from rumors. At the same time, news about some secret sect appeared again. They spread and blew up the networks. After Lai Yun defeated Tang Ruochen, he didn't fight anymore, and this morning he hasn't logged off yet. These few days, he kept challenging Lai Yun to a fight, but he refused. Lai Yunmu left his shop to his sister, but she is not particularly good at running a business. She receives a lot of offers, but the woman does not understand everything well. Lee is seeing off the last customers. He thought that his sister would cope, but the girl is not doing well. She apologizes, but the guy doesn't blame at all. Now the crystal caught his attention. He looks at it and thinks, Yunmu never thought that the crystal would be so popular in the virtual world. Customers also bring black crystals. The latter was most likely from a wealthy family. Lee said that when his sister got married, she would live like a princess. But a girl doesn't need the life of a princess. She just wants to live with her parents and Lee. The guy is silent for a while, looks at her, but does not answer anything. Then he translates the topic by asking if the girl has prepared the crystals that Lee asked for. The sister has prepared everything, but she wonders why he needed crystals for such a large amount. Lee thought about it. The amount is really large, but his world is still a couple of meters. It costs even more than a house. And Sue contacts Lai. The guy says he needs the help of a friend. The guy's failed, and Sue tells Yunmu to go to the Waidu arena as soon as possible. The guy quickly breaks down to help his friends. He grabs the suitcase and asks his sister to warn his parents that he will not be able to attend dinner today. The guys are haunted by some man. A tense situation hangs between them. Everyone is throwing insults. The bullies claim that the Big Qing team without Lin Shuang is not capable of anything at all. Weather appears. The guy says that his friends are always getting into trouble during his absence. Sister Shuang has only been gone for a few days, and they do not give rest. The guys were very happy about Yunmu's appearance. They expect the guy to fight their abusers, but he didn't say he was going to fight. Yunmu says that those have too high a level. Moreover, Big Qing claims that it is difficult to defeat them. Getting off not too bad is already good. To tell the truth, Big Qing is kind of weird today, as if he doesn't want to fight. And Jai says that Zhang seems to have lost on purpose. These words make Lee think. At this time, another team is rushing the guys to go out to fight. They don't want to waste my time. Just a man from this team puts 100,000 crystals on something to win. They also ask to add one person to their team since the Big Xing team has been replenished. They agree because they are not afraid of anything when Lai Yunmu is with them. But they don't even think about who can be attached. Another person comes to the enemy team, but when the guys see who it is, they realize that they are trapped. He says that putting only 100,000 crystals is not interesting. The guy offers to increase the bid. Lai can't help but remember Jiaqin. Tan apologizes for the rudeness of his buddies. They did this to attract Lai Yunmu, but the guy is still not going to fight with Tan's team. Jiaqin tries to find Lai's weakness. The guy mentions that Yunmu needs a good sword. If he agrees to fight Tan, then he will get it. The sword of Snow Frost is at stake. It was forged from the Frost Blood Raven mineral from Tibet. Although it is a Class B sword, its potential is inexhaustible. If you engrave the appropriate runes on it, then it will become a Class A sword. And if you also harden the soul of a warrior, then the sword will rise even higher by a step. He will become just a real treasure. Big Xing smiles sweetly and says that, despite all the attractiveness of the sword, they have nothing to put in return. He apologizes to Tam. Jiaqin says that regardless of whether the guys win or not, they will still have the sword. But if Tang's team wins, then he will face Lai Yun. Yunmu guessed that this would be the case. This Tang Ruochin is very smart. Put forward a condition that Li can't refuse. The guy did not think that his opponent would be so stubborn. Yunmu agrees. The broadcast begins on the screens. All the spectators get comfortable, anticipating the upcoming fight. They are surprised at the rate. The sword is worth 10 million. The audience doesn't understand why, and needed Lai Yunmu if he was defeated by Lai Yun last time. Someone says that Lai Yun does not agree to fight with Jiaqin in any way, and the defeated enemy cannot help but remind himself. The countdown to the start of the battle begins. This time the arena will be a huge island with a tropical forest. Big Xing asks his friend if he is afraid of his opponent. Lai replies that he feels more uplifted now than ever, but Tang Jiaqin is his. The friend is happy to give it to Li, since they still won't be able to cope with such a serious opponent. The battle begins. Everyone is running to their positions. Li takes out a bow and climbs onto a tree branch. Jun notices the guy has a weapon and in tea when he learned how to use a bow. Suddenly Yunmu realizes that he really does not know how to use a bow and arrow. The guy asks the system what he can learn now in a short time. The system offers the guy to learn the lunar eclipse technique. Li agrees. At this time, he is unconscious. His friends are standing next to him, and they don't understand what happened to the guy. Suddenly there was a noise. Someone has come. Big Xing gives the command to everyone to get ready. Yunmu remains motionless at this time. Zhang asks Lai Zai to stay with the guy, since he seems to have disconnected from the system. Before Xing can finish, Lai returns to the game. The guy jumps up high, does greasy and pulls the bow. The audience is watching his actions. They thought the guy only wielded a frenzied sword. Yunmu launches an attack despite the fact that the enemy is 1,000 meters away. At the same time, Li fires 7 arrows at once, but not a single arrow hits the enemy. The audience begins to get indignant and say that Yunmu to Lai Yun is like walking to the moon. But they don't understand that this is how it's meant to be. Li uses the lunar eclipse technique. A pentagram is formed near the enemy. Then a huge energy wolf appears, which deals with the opponent. The audience is horrified by what they saw, as the guy was torn into small pieces. Tan's team did not expect such a turn of events. At the same moment, the second member of the team is wounded by an arrow. Jiaqin is interested in his condition. He is going to warn his friends to be careful, but does not have time, as a raven picks him up. The guy starts screaming, not understanding what is happening and why he is in the air. Li takes advantage of this moment and releases an arrow. Now there are only 3 opponents left. The audience never ceases to be surprised by what they saw. Someone knew about crows only from books, but today they had the opportunity to see them. People are surprised that Yunmu can attack with a bow from such a decent distance. After all, these crows were sealed by the King of Destruction, but no one knows that he gave Li power over them. Opponents try to get as close to the guy as possible so as not to become victims of long-range arrows. Within Yunmu's shooting range, they are like cattle in a slaughterhouse to him. Lai Shuang is also flying out. Only Tan and the man remain. They must not allow arrows to hit them. Otherwise, their blood will only attract ravens. Of course, it's easier said than done, but the guys have no other choice. Suddenly Li's arrows catch up with the opponents. The man tells Jiaqin that he will not run further because they will not escape anyway. It's better to challenge. Tan agrees and asks a friend to cover for him. They need to slowly get close to Li. But as soon as the guy says this, his partner's head is pierced by a fired arrow. Da Pan falls to the ground. There is only one Tang Ruochin left. It turns out that Yunmu has dealt with almost all opponents. Because of this, the guy's friends got bored. After all, it was supposed to be a team effort, and they don't participate at all. Suddenly a bright light comes on. Lee finds out that it is a blow of golden crystals. Tang finds Yunmu. Lee grins and asks if it wasn't the leggings that saved the guy from his arrows and helped him break through to a new level. Jiachinu replies that at first he wanted to use them to defend himself from the frenzied sword, but it seems that now they will definitely not be useful to him. The guys start fighting. Yunmu shoots arrows, but Tang defends himself. Realizing that the arrows did not work, Yunmu decides to use his crows. Jiachin has already had enough of these birds. He lets a rabid beast out of himself. A bright golden light breaks out of the guy's mouth. A strong wind is rising. Lee's buddies get scared. The guys don't know what they're dealing with, but Big Xing assumes that this is the soul of a warrior. The appearance of the soul is a huge pig with a mohawk and a leather vest with spikes. Now Tan is already a stronger opponent. He is overwhelmed with confidence and a desire to use his skill. With the help of the warrior's soul, Tang grabs the raven and deals with it in an instant. The same fate awaits the second. The arrows released by Yunmu don't even hit the enemy. Now Lee has only one arrow left. Things are very bad. Yunmu is calling the King of Destruction. He hears his call and asks what the guy needs. Lai asks if the king can defeat Jiachin. The king replies that a rabid beast is not worth a toe. Yunmu says that the ravens he gave him will soon be dead. It seems ridiculous to the king. He asks how much strength the guy thinks he got from that. Lee asks for more strength, but the king is not satisfied with this. If a guy wants his strength, then you need to exchange for something. Yunmu agrees and commands the system to use all of its inner strength to break the king's seal. The system takes power. During all this time, it has accumulated not so little. Of course, the moment when the seal will be broken is still far away, but the king agrees to give Lee more power. Yunmu gets power, but the rabid beast has already defeated all 3 ravens. But Lee saved one idea for the enemy. The guy launches a bunch of crows at the opponent. He did not expect this at all. All the crows that belonged to Lai Tang destroyed, but for this the king decides to take revenge on him. In an instant, the corpses of the ravens merge together. Everything is illuminated with a golden light. The power of gold crystals is triggered. The Raven King appears on the battlefield. The audience stands in surprise. They are already confused about what level of battle they are watching. People are starting to assume that Yunmu is the strongest in Lai's family. The Raven King himself is simply huge, even taller than the King of Destruction. The king is unhappy that some tiny beast dares to stand in his way. He tells Lee to watch how, with the help of the king, he will win. The decisive moment of the battle is coming. Now Tan understands that this time he definitely lost. Everyone is glued to the screens with surprise, watching the fight. It cannot be said that they all won in the Big Xing team, since only one Lai fought. The guy gets 169 points of void energy. Yunmu is grateful to the Raven King for his help. He asks to be called simply the king. Lai Tzu attacks Yunmu. From joy, the girl almost strangles him. The guy is also congratulated by his friends. Big Xing says that the bow that the guy took from the treasury seems to be a worthwhile thing. Onions must be used wisely. He will help Lee grow up well. Yunmu returned to reality. It's been a long time since he's been here. This time, Lee received a certain amount of void energy points. They can be used to expand the star world. The guy thinks that the system is going to rob him again. At this rate, he won't have anything left at all. Zio Kaian comes to the guy. The guy was passing by the pass office, and they told him that someone was looking for Lee. And it looks like it's Tang Ryuachin. Yunmu comes to the meeting, saying that Tang can't even part with him for an hour. Jiachin gives the Snow Frost sword to the guy. Tan looks very sullen, but despite this he keeps his word. The guy gives the sword in a case, which is made of white frosty jasper from the Tine Shan mountain. Other weapons can also be stored in this case. Yunmu understands that Ryuachin arranged all this and put it on the sword just to see Lai Yun. Tan apologizes for involving Lee's friends in this, but he had not been able to calm down since he had fought with him. He wanted so much to learn his frenzied sword technique. Yunmu notices that the loss hurt the guy very much, but now he admitted defeat and promised that he would not bother Lee anymore. Tan looks very depressed. If he does not cope with this thought, he will be stuck in one place. Lee thinks he's a good guy. The guy calls out to Tan. He says he will fight him, uses a frenzied sword. From this, Jiachin was very happy to hear this. Other people notice them. They immediately recognize the heroes. All attention is focused on the guys. The audience is waiting for the next fight. Due to the large number of people, Lee doubts whether it is worth fighting in the real world. Tan tells the guy not to worry and shows that he has a ball, a protective barrier. Tan deftly and defiantly throws it up. The sphere expands and Jiachin invites him to enter this sphere. so they will be just the two of them. Onlookers are not happy about this because they will not see anything. An hour passes. There is complete silence for a while. The audience is still waiting for the guys. Suddenly someone comes out. The guys went out together at the same time. Beaten, bruised, but happy and friendly. In reality, fighting is much more interesting. Everyone starts asking who won, but the guys answer ambiguously. The guys are sitting on a bench and trying to move away after the fight. Lee asks, jokingly, if he is entitled to a reward for fighting Tang for so long. Jachin considers Lai an excellent fighter. He asks him not to be greedy, because Tan himself knows that improving the Sword of Snow Frost is not cheap. Besides, Tang's family is rich. The guy jokingly loses his temper, telling Lee to stop blackmailing him. He also adds that the guy can try his luck in the Tower of Triumph. The power of the entire union of shooters is gathered in this tower. It has been under construction for 9 years and has 8 floors. To enter there, you need to defeat the monster Wida of each floor. The higher the floor, the stronger the monster. For winning, you get a tower medal, which can be exchanged for a prize. Tan told Lee how to get rich, now it's up to the guy. As soon as he has time, he will definitely try. Yunmu is sitting on a bench alone. The headman comes up to him and asks why the guy is sitting here so beaten up. The headman also warns that in a few days, the Heavenly Cloud Fortress will go to fight in the field of the demonic bull, and will be there for 1 month. During this time, Lee can practice and collect useful data. Yunmu is talented, so if he misses this opportunity, it will be a shame. 3 days pass. The actions unfold in the library. Yunmu sits and carefully studies the information. It is very difficult for him to understand all this, but the guy does not despair. Even if he doesn't understand something, in the end, Tang Ruochan will be able to help him. Tan approaches the guy and holds out something. At first, Lee does not understand what it is, then he learns about the map of secret entrances. The entrances are mainly located in the field of the demonic bull, on the Devil's Mountain, in the Dark Zone. Tan had heard that Lee was going to go there, so he decided that the card would definitely not be superfluous. Yunmu looks at it for a long time, but does not understand what is written on it. Jachin explains that these are ancient writings, but whether Yunmu will decipher them or not depends on him. There are 138,640 kilometers from Devil Mountain to Demon Bull Field. Devil's Mountain is a dark zone filled with monsters. Suddenly Liu Noji approaches the guy. The girl asks why he is not looking for information about the field of the demonic bull, but finds out about this dangerous place. But Yunmu had just heard about this place, so he was curious. That's all. But the girl still doesn't believe him. She asks loudly if it's dangerous there. Lee has to tell the girl to be quiet since they are in the library. She is very worried about him. She's so worried that Lee will cry a little more. The girl says that even if Yunmu has a strong defensive technique, he is still putting himself at great risk. He is also a disciple of the Hidden World sect. Yunmu calmed the girl down. He said that he understood everything, patted her on the head. The guy also added that he always makes her worry, so he considers himself a fool. But he can do nothing with the fact that he likes risk. Yunmu takes the girl's face in his hands and asks for forgiveness, without devaluing the girl's feelings for Lee's safety in that place. But in this world, everything is in such a way that even if there is a danger, but ours needs to be done. The guy promises Liu to come back alive for her sake, despite what will be there. The guy takes an oath on his little fingers, but the girl pretends that she doesn't care if he comes back or not, also for her sake. Lee smiled, saying that he would take it all as if the girl had smiled too. He also added that Liu Noji has a very beautiful smile. The girl is very pleased with these words, but she decides to disguise her feelings, so she calls Yunmu a fool and asks him to leave her alone. At the same time, she says that if he suddenly has some business, she will be happy to help. The guy agrees. His friends are watching all this. They are touched by them. When a guy studies the mountain of information in a little more detail, he becomes convinced that it will really be very dangerous there. Yunmu fills out the registration form. After filling out, he is asked to leave a form and pay a fee for participation. The entrance to the Tower of Triumph is quite expensive, 500,000. If ancient runes weren't needed to temper the sword, Lai wouldn't have come at all. There are a lot of medium-level shooters in the tower. Only the best will dare to come here. 2 girls are discussing this topic. One redhead with a Panama hat is Chu Qingyu and the other with pinkish hair is Lin Lai. The girls notice Yunmu and assume that he is only at the level of ordinary crystals. At this time, the guy is trying to make a payment, but when he sees the price, He asks for a discount, which no one will give him. Lin Lai says that there is nothing surprising here, so there are arrows of the level of simple crystals. But they clearly have more power than ordinary people. As Lin looks at Lai, she realizes that the guy seems very familiar to her. Here's a girl looking at him from behind, and I want to hit him right away. Chu Qingyu approaches Yunmu and greets him. The guy immediately recognizes the girl and a cold sweat breaks out on him. He met two of the girls who hated him the most. He even squatted down from his thoughts. For everything, Chu is watching this. He has no choice but to turn around and ask who called him. Then he starts complimenting the girls and saying that they have an unusual appearance. Chu Qingyu immediately says that she was mistaken. Yunmu does not stop and says that such a beautiful girl, when talking to strange men, can be stolen. Chu is losing his temper. She's not going to tolerate this rudeness. She asks Li if the person she is dealing with now knows. Here Yunmu changes his tone, saying that he doesn't care who the girl is. But if she gets him, then in this case, he will tear off her clothes. And then, Li will give it to someone in the mountains, and the girl will marry some fool. Listening to all this, Lai Lin decides to take her friend away, saying that she has nothing to waste her time talking to some fool. The girls leave. Yunmu is happy that they are finally gone. His face is already stiff. A little more, and he would have remained like this forever. The guy kept his eyes rolled up for too long. It can't go on any longer. Suddenly, the voice of a girl who is handing out leaflets is heard. She advertises souvenirs from the Union. Li walks into this store and buys himself a fish mask. Then he goes on. The terrain amazes the guy with its beauty. It's even scary to imagine how much money was invested in the construction of this stellar world. Suddenly, the guy gets a slap on the head from Chu Qingyu. The girl says that he drugged the world of the founder of the shooters. The guy doesn't quite understand what she's talking about. Chu says, how can you not know this? She is talking about the founder of the shooters, who was the first person in whom the power of the shooter was awakened. In this dark era, he became a ray of hope for all mankind. Yunmu assumes that he must already be over 200 years old, if he is still alive, of course. But the girl asks the guy not to talk nonsense. The founder of the shooters is doing great right now. She also advises him not to underestimate the Tower of Triumph built by the Union, because you never know what you will die from here. That scared Li. He didn't know that people were dying here. The girl says that there are not only 108 floors above the ground, but as many more go underground. People call it the Tower of the Fall. Only those who have received a pass in the Dark Zone have the right to enter the tower. Yunmu understands that this is exactly where he needs to go. The Tower of Triumph seems to Li a rather strange building. Chu says there can be nothing more strange in this world than Li's mask. The girl says it's time for her to leave, and let the guy hope for himself. Yunmu decides to play a joke, and asks the beauty for a number. This makes the girl lose her temper and tells him not to call her that. Li then turns his attention to the Tower of Triumph. He wonders what this place is so famous for. The guy goes inside and notices 3 doors in front of him. The door of sacred shooters, the door of shooters, and the door of super shooters. The super shooter is the one who has already exceeded the level of the shooter, and the sacred shooter is the one who has exceeded the level of the shooter. Yunmu found out that there are levels above the level of rainbow crystals. Now he can only enter the arch of shooters. Each door has its own rating. Yunmu goes to the door and looks at the list of participants. The system warns him that he is in a dangerous place. The system starts scanning the tower and asks to wait for the guy. Yunmu takes off his mask and tries to figure out what's going on here. How can it be dangerous here? Because this place, was built by the founder of the shooters. The scan is being completed. The map is loaded in the shadow. The Tower of Triumph is divided into 333 wide spaces. In the event of Yunmu's death, the tower will take away his energy. Li believes that this is just a training tower, but you can even die in it. All this seems strange to the guy. Is it possible that someone uses the prize system to attract the best shooters of the tower, and then with their energy they expand this world? But isn't the founder of this tower the very first awakened and the hero of all mankind? Li does not believe that it can be so. The guy asks the system to scan the tower and find where the founder lives. The system scans the tower. After a normal scan, she proceeds to a deep scan. When all this is completed, she assumes that the owner of the tower and the demons of Waidu are the embodiment of this tower. It turns out that he is now watching Yunmu's every move. It seems that the founder sent his consciousness into oblivion to become the deity of the 12 stars. Now the tower is controlled by a creature with basic intelligence. Li realizes that the founder has already collected 7 stars. Before becoming a deity, he had only 5 left to collect. So a man whom everyone considers a hero does not disdain killing people for the sake of becoming a deity. Yunmu finds it disgusting. The guy says, since the creator likes to use people, then he uses it himself. He walks in the door. At first, Lee hears some noise. He looks closely, but does not notice anything. Suddenly, clawed rats pounce on the guy and scratch him. They say that these creatures are equal in strength to the arrows of ordinary crystals at the peak of their skill, but there are already 9 of them. And this is only the first floor. Lee is afraid to imagine how many deadly traps he has yet to meet. The rats decide to attack all together, but Yunmu is not too afraid of them. Besides, he doesn't have anything else to do anyway. The guy activates the shadow system and the battle begins. Yunmu deftly copes with opponents. His shadows are great help. By the end of the fight, he will even be able to earn a certain number of points. The shadows have learned to cooperate and fight together. This makes the guy very happy. After they have finished with the first floor, Lee commands the shadows to return. Suddenly the exchange list comes out of the floor. The guy comes up and checks the information offered. In general, the assortment is not so expensive. The writings of the Frost Ice Waidu cost 100 points. The ancient writings of Thunder and Lightning 100 points. If you buy it for money, you will need about 1 million. Also in the assortment are the power of the otherworldly arrow, rainbow crystals, the blood of a flying dragon of the 6th level. Now is it not surprising that many risk their lives in this tower? Suddenly, the guy discovers the blood of fairy shadows at a price of 25 points. The guy just has seeds. He opens the box and receives the artifact seeds. In order for this seed to grow, you need to water it with the blood of a shadow fairy. Then Lee will be able to get the artifact. Shadow Fairy is a 7th level Waidu creature. It lives only in the shadows, and it is quite difficult to find it. Yunmu is surprised that you can buy such a rare thing here. The guy wants to find a way to get it, since he currently has only 10 points available. The system warns him to act in accordance with his capabilities. In general, this is only the first floor. For sure, it won't be difficult to walk a couple more floors. The guy moves on. On the 2nd floor of the Tower of Triumph, he copes with 19 otherworldly rats. On the 3rd floor, he fights with 29 otherworldly rats. On the 4th floor of the Tower of Triumph, he defeated 39 otherworldly rats. On the 5th, 49 otherworldly rats and 1 rat general. The guy attacks the Rat King along with his shadows. Number 1 attacks from the left. Trying to get into the general several times, attempts are not crowned with success. The guy asks number 2 to distract the rat with a false attack so that it uses the power of fire. Since the close range attacks didn't bring them anything, Yunmu decides to use an eclipse attack. Lee shoots a bow and applies the lunar eclipse technique. A large wolf is formed from the formations, which rushes at the enemy. The wolf jumps up to the rat general and bites him. After that, an explosion occurs, so the rat general is defeated. From above, a huge amount of coins begins to fall on Yunmu, from which the guy is surprised. Was this rat really that fat? The guy also dealt with the henchmen of the rat general. It turns out that there are 10 pieces on the 1st floor and 20 on the 2nd. Lee is too lazy to count how much money he got for all this, so the guy keeps moving on. At this time, Yunmu's fans are worried, as he has not been online for several days. Someone thinks that he lost to Tang Jochin and is now afraid to stick his head out. But someone categorically disagrees with this theory. At one point, a special broadcast is launched. All people are distracted from their business and rivet attention to the big screens. In this broadcast, congratulations are being sent to Lai Yunmu from Zhangju, an arrow of the level of ordinary crystals, on his successful ascent to the 10th floor of the Tower of Triumph. This congratulation is coming from all screens. Everyone froze with surprise and a little trepidation. Someone can't believe it. Getting to the 10th floor of the Tower of Triumph at the usual crystal level seems simply impossible. The action takes place in the capital Zhangju. One company is asked to bring materials with information about Lai Yunmun. Everyone is talking about this guy now. The Temple of the God of War has published a notice stating that Lee is among the temple's test subjects. One man also asks to publish a notice that Lai Yunmu is now a young star of Jiangsu. Also, his family was granted the right to live in the capital and the estate. Notification of the Temple of the God of War. Now Lai Yunmu is a test subject of the Temple of the God of War, receives the qualification of a test subject. Now, the Temple of the God of War and the Union of Shooters have decided to lure him to themselves. People see for the first time in their lives when the Arrow of Ordinary Crystals is awarded such a title. At the same time, Yunmu is fighting monsters on the 11th floor of the Tower of Triumph. He destroyed 99 hell rats, 5 otherworldly rats and 1 rat emperor. The emperor is a monster of the level of golden crystals, therefore, it is a serious rival for the guy. but Lee uses the lunar eclipse strike again, after which the Rat Emperor explodes. Yunmu wins again, but the guy feels that he will soon be at the limit of his abilities. It's been a long time since he fought in a hollow force. Now he even knows his real abilities. Now, together with his shadows number 1 and number 2, Lee is able to defeat enemies of the golden crystal level. At the moment, the guy has already accumulated 300 coins. He has a total of 2,370 coins. And this means that Yunmu can now acquire what he has wanted for so long. Yunmu is very happy if he only passed 11 floors and coins are no longer required to collect. This Tower of Triumph is not so complicated. The system notifies that since the owner entered such a complex tower at the level of ordinary crystals, he is entitled to additional points. The shooter of the level of ordinary crystals can get bonus coins on each floor of the tower. It turns out that it's good that Lee didn't go to the level of those black crystals. The guy presses the exchange button, and everything lights up with a golden glow. Golden scales appear in front of Lee. I suggest that he put coins on these scales. Even voice accompaniment is present. Yunmu puts down the coins, and he is given a bottle of liquid with which to irrigate the shade. The guy asks the system to move him to the star world. When he is transferred, he sees a terrible mess. Now the guy realized that throwing things into the star world was a bad idea. He begins to look for the necessary seed. After a while, Lee finds him. The guy buries the seed in the ground and starts counting. It's all his own soil and earth. This cannot but please him. Yunmu then opens the recently issued vial of fairy blood and waters the soil. Immediately, a sprout begins to sprout from their land. The plant blooms so fast that it was almost impossible to follow it. Then everything is illuminated with a golden light, from which Lee falls to the ground. At this rate, he can go blind. There is a purple flower in front of the guy. Lee crawls closer to examine him. Looking closer, Yunmu notices that a little fairy is sleeping in the core. The system congratulates the host on the successful birth of the Queen of Shadows. There is no limit to the guy's tenderness. He just wants to cuddle her plump little cheeks. The baby wakes up. Opening her eyes, she sees in front of her a big Lee for her. The guy introduces himself and says that he is very pleased to meet her. The baby blinks silently at first, and then calls Yunmu daddy and asks for a hug, stretching out her little hands to him. It's so unusual to hear Lee that he just runs away and falls to the ground, saying at the same time that life is very interesting. Lee did not expect at all that a child could really be born from the seed. From this day on, they will be together. The guy takes the girl in his arms and realizes that she is completely hungry, but he doesn't have anything right now. Yunmu tries to say that as soon as they go outside, she will immediately eat, but she does not have time, because the baby starts crying. The guy calms her down, saying that dad will think of something. The system warns Yunmu that the Shadow Queen feeds on blood, so he can feed her his own. Lee is not at all sorry for the baby of his blood. He tells her to drink as much as she needs and holds out her finger. The happy girl bites him and starts drinking. Yunmu believes that it's not a pity to lose a little blood for such a cute daughter. Besides, she's small and won't drink much. For a while the guy looks and is touched, but then he realizes that enough time has passed, and the girl continues to drink. The system explains that since the quality of the host's blood is very low, the Queen of Shadows needs a large amount. Half an hour passes. The exhausted Yunmu continues to be touched by the baby. He thinks he sees an angel. The guy didn't think that he would ever almost die feeding a child. Yunmu is fortified with goji juice with brown sugar. The guy feels better. At this time, the little Queen of Shadows appears, flies up to him and hugs him. The system warns that the queen can move freely in space. If she doesn't want to appear, others won't see her. The guy thinks it's pretty convenient. Also, the system says that the girl's strongest skill is copying power. She is able to copy the power of saint-level shooters and below. But this does not mean that the baby is stronger than Yunmu. Since she is able to copy a power superior to her own, Lai can put as much power into her as she wants. Yunmu wants to teach her baby to fight. Therefore, he offers the girl to move on. Suddenly, not rats appear in front of them, but female birds. Feathered witches live on the 12th floor of the Triumph Tower. The guy notices the fighting spirit of the baby at first, but then she gets confused and flies back. Feathered witches release ice crystals. They are quite dangerous opponents. Yunmu worries about the baby and calms down when she sees that everything is fine with the girl. He is angry that flying women almost hurt his child. Therefore, Lee leaves the baby in a safe place, and he goes to take revenge. The guy easily begins to deal with opponents. He tells them not to underestimate the paternal power of love. Female birds croak. One of them uses a sound wave attack, because of which Lee cannot move. Then, the other strikes a fiery blow, from which the guy is thrown back. Watching all this, the baby begins to worry very much about her dad. All these sound waves annoy Yunmu terribly. If he does not cope with them, then he will be finished. Another attack is applied again with the help of a sound wave. The guy can't take it anymore. But suddenly, the baby begins to inhale the power of the opponents. The girl can even swallow sound waves. Lee had never seen such a strange force manifest before. This is very convenient, since the opponents are now neutralized and are no longer able to harm them. Yunmu is glad that the girl has such an ability. Now they will fight together. Half an hour passes in the world of emptiness. A special message is being broadcast on all channels congratulating Lee Yunmu on entering the 15th floor of the Triumph Tower. People are just shocked. They don't believe in what is happening. Some even consider Yunmu to be a complete lunatic. Everyone starts admiring the guy. The subordinate of Happy Wind City confirmed his words that Lie would be fine. In the auditorium of Happy Wind University, teacher Yunmu is sitting leaning on a table. He is very happy that his student has thundered all over the world. Already so famous. Somewhere in a secret place, they are also watching Lee's progress. Lin Shuang can't wait to fight with his buddy. The Tang family's house is also not far behind. His friend watches Lee and realizes that now his father will blame Tan for not having achieved the same success. In the courtyard of the Cloudy Sky University, one guy apologizes to the chairman for losing to Lee. He didn't expect Yunmu to be so strong. He will definitely become the trump card of Happy Wind University and a threat to them. Now he has flown high enough and is very strong. They are unlikely to be able to deal with him quietly. The chairman says that it is incomprehensible to the mind that Lee was able to reach the 15th floor of the Triumph Tower at the level of ordinary crystals. But if the blood of a holy warrior flows in him, then this explains everything. The group plans to spread the word that Lee Yunmu has the blood of a holy warrior. The more people find out about it, the better it will be for them. Perhaps it is this information that will erase Lee to the nines. This is very insidious on the part of the chairman. But that's exactly what they need. Barely struggling with the last of his strength and stepping over the ladders of monsters, Yunmu rises to the 20th floor. According to the rules, those who reach the 20th floor automatically get into the leaderboard. Lee can hide the number of floors passed so that his name does not appear on the leaderboard. Yunmu asks why the system didn't warn him about this earlier. The guy decides to hide his name from the list because he doesn't want to stand out. He's already made a splash lately, so there's no need for extra attention. Now Yunmu can continue to fight and not worry about the extra attention. But it's too late to do this, since the news that Lee Yunmu made his way to the 20th floor and appeared on the rating list. For the first time since the tower was built, someone was able to squeeze into the leaderboard. But suddenly the name disappears, and the audience does not understand why this happened. Someone is beginning to assume that Lee is dead. Someone does not agree with this, saying that he could not die so quickly and just hid his rating, because strong people are constantly hiding something. One guy reports that he has just received a message that this man, Lee Yunmu, possesses the blood of a holy warrior. Now it is not surprising that the guy's skill is growing by leaps and bounds. This news is starting to spread with great speed. One guy says he needs to get back to the clan as soon as possible and report it. At this time, Lee is still in the tower. Prolonged presence in this room begins to be felt. When a guy goes outside, he feels the freshness of the air. Yunmu is happy with his harvest this time. He was lucky enough to pull out a whole bunch of amazing things. Suddenly, the guy notices the looks of the people around him, who are surprised to whisper about him. People are discussing his rating. No one can even guess how many times he has already been in the tower. Judging by his backpack, some guy has already reached level 30. It becomes convenient for Lee to be in such an environment. At first he thinks he's just imagining it, but then he realizes he's not. People are really discussing it. In the Musicians Union, in Yuncheng District, people are talking and wondering what happened to the guy. It seems to them that Yunmu has died, because even his rating has disappeared. Shu Qingyong, the son of the mayor of Tianyuan City, is waiting for the young master, so he does not want him to die. Shu Qingyu, the adopted daughter of the mayor of Tianyuan City, tells her brother to stop whining. Their father does important things, works for the benefit of people, and Jan devalues everything with his own words. As soon as Yunmu comes out, he is met by Yu. The guy immediately puts on his frog socka so that the girl does not recognize him. He starts talking nonsense about what he knows about his charm. But you don't need to run after him like a dog. Anything to avoid being recognized. The girl tells him to shut up and stop carrying this pre. It's already late, since the girl knows that the guy is really Lee Yunmu. Therefore, she asks him not to squint. She also tells Tom not to worry, since she's not here to pester a guy. Today, she received an order to take Yunmu to the mayor's mansion. Jan also appears. They begin to exchange sarcastic statements about each other with Lee. It is already clear that there was hostility between the guys, but then Yu cools down his brother's ardor and asks Yunmu to go with them. But Lee is in no hurry to go with as he has no idea who they are and what they are going to do with him. Suddenly, Liu Noji contacts Yunmu. She was already sure that the guy was nailed in this tower and he was unharmed. The girl starts crying. Yunmu tries to calm her down and also asks how Liu knows he was in the tower. The girl said that the whole world knows about it. Just as Lai was about to answer something, Yu clogs the guy's phone and starts talking to Liu. Noji asks why she is with Yunmu, to which the girl replies that her father asked her to pick up Lai and take her to the mansion. But apparently the guy is not happy with this offer. Liu Noji assures that Yunmu should not worry about anything, and that he should go with them. Yu is the girl's best friend, so she won't hurt the guy. Lai agrees to go with them, so that Liu Noji won't cry. The guy calls Yu a beauty and tells her to take him where he needs to go. The girl doesn't like Yunmu calling her that. If her dad was here, he would have nailed Lee on the spot. Yang Lai is very annoying, but despite this, the guy holds back. The group gets to the estate. The building is really great, a worthy place of residence for the Lord of the Heavenly City. Yu says that Lai can take a couple of ideas to decorate his mansion in Qinglong if he wishes, but Yunmu doesn't understand what the girl is talking about at all. She is very surprised that Lee does not know anything about what happened during his stay in the tower. The royal capital granted him the title. In the future, Lee will join the squad of the Temple of the God of War. This information shocks the guy, as he specifically wanted to hide from unnecessary attention. And now it turns out, on the contrary, he has become famous. The girl has some bad news. Now everyone in the outside world knows that Yunmu has the blood of a holy warrior flowing in his veins. The girl comes to the surprise that the guy does not even know who this holy warrior is. Yu explains that the holy warrior is the highest stage of development of the spiritual and physical powers of the ruler. The direct descendants of people who participated in the holy war most often have a powerful bloodline called holy blood or sage blood. The better the bloodline, the higher the probability of obtaining holy orders. So, now the strongest of this world are hungry for Lee's blood. Yunmu does not understand at all what kind of holy bloodline can be discussed when his father is the head of the factory. But it is not for him to decide whether this blood flows in his veins. The guys go to the big hall, where a descendant of the heavenly city, a rain lady, a heavenly dragon, and a heavenly rebel are waiting for them at a round table. The mayor wants to make a deal with Lee in this heavenly city. The Western commander invites the guy to sit down. Lee asks him to say everything directly so as not to waste time on interpersonal conversations. Besides this meeting, Yunmu has a lot to do. The discussion begins. The guy is asked if he thought that the ruler of the city and the head of the guild are two opposing forces. They are equal in strength and capabilities, so different tensions constantly arise between them. But both maintain a delicate balance within the city. But lately the situation is getting out of control. The already fragile balance is about to be disrupted. That's why Yunmu was invited. The Western commander hopes that the Lai sect will agree to join the city faction. As long as the Lai sect cooperates with them, they promise Yunmu their protection and support. Lee thinks that he has been going to his goal for too long. Therefore, he refuses this offer. Unpleasant insults immediately begin to pour out on Yunmu, hinting that the guy does not understand where he is now. But Lee says that they probably forgot that he is a member of the Lee family. If he needs someone's protection, his family will be able to take good care of him without outside help. If the Lai sect were to join their faction, wouldn't that mean that it's not capable of anything on its own? Yunmu is being bombarded with various offers to win him over to his side. They might even send the Acropolis to the Lai sect. They agree to put forward counter conditions. All tax revenues will belong to the Lai family and should not concern the heavenly city in any way. This is the maximum they can agree to. But Lee believes that if they put forward such conditions, then they have their own plans. Yunmu understood what she was trying to achieve. She wanted him to have a stable flow of money and an autonomous city under his control. Therefore, the guy says, despite the fact that their offer is very tempting, he is forced to refuse. John is losing his temper. He was tired of putting up with it. He asks if the guy understands who he's talking to right now. Chu Qingyang curls up and runs to the guy across the office. His sister tries to stop him, but he doesn't even want to listen to anyone. Yang says since this kid is so restless and refuses to voluntarily cooperate with the heavenly city, they will simply send him to a neutral territory and hand him over to the ruling clan there in exchange for their loyalty. The situation is escalating. Lee has to hit some people who are going to grab him. They think it's too much for a guy like that. They were told that their opponent was an ordinary kid from Lai Zong's gang. But ordinary arrogant children do not have such power. He has never met opponents of a higher level. Therefore, perhaps his fighting strength has already been exhausted. Even for the owner of the sage's blood, there are repartitions. Moreover, there are many of them, and he is alone. Lee is again attacked by employees, but he deftly copes with them. Yu shouts to Chu Kai-yong to stop his men right now. No one allowed him to do that. The Western commander sits and watches this, thinking about how much noise has been raised because of trifles. Since Lee was so disrespectful to their offer of cooperation, he wants to see what the guy is really capable of. Chu Kai-yong is just furious that his subordinates can't handle Yunmu. Suddenly the door swings open. Jen stands in surprise. Lee says that now it's Chu's turn. From fright, the guy falls to the floor and begins to crawl back. He tries to convince Yunmu that he tried to recall his subordinates, but they did not obey him. Then, when there is nowhere else to crawl, the guy tries to take advantage of his position, saying that he is the son of the mayor. But this does not convince Yunmu in any way. Yu notices that Lai has the power of the thunder attribute. She doesn't understand why the guy has this power. He didn't use any special skills in the arena. Everyone understands that there really is an unusual power in the guy. When Lai is about to strike at Yong, a protective barrier is triggered. But after that, Yunmu disappears. Lee hears the voice transmission technique. This means that there is another sage here. This is the mayor's voice. Yunmu says correlate will hinder the mayor's attempt to talk to him personally. The guy says that he did not intend to kill Jan, so the barrier is not necessary. Lee thinks it's too low to kill someone who relies on his rich dad for everything. The mayor asks you to take Yunmu to the backyard garden. He wants to talk to him in person. Lee is already tired of waiting for a meeting with the mayor. He asks you how much longer they have to go to the meeting place. They really have a big house since it takes so long to get to the exit. The girl tells him to stop babbling and follow her. The voice says that as soon as Lee sees the old man, he will have to copy his skills before he figures him out. Finally, they enter the garden. A man with purple hair is sitting on the fountain. It turns and, smiling, greets Yunma. The man's whole body is exhausted. Lee wonders how he lives with such a body at all. The old man takes off his shirt and shows his body, saying that Yunmu is most likely surprised to see the legendary saint in such a pitiful state. The girl says that her father used secret techniques to forcibly influence the saints and beat out a place for himself. But in the end, they fought back. Since then, the man's body looks like this. He advises Yor to take a closer look at Yunmu. You don't get any younger with age. The girl asks her father not to talk nonsense, and he says he's just worried about his daughter because she still has no one. Lee intervenes in their conversation, saying that did the old man ask him to come here to see their beautiful family ties. The man laughed and said he was just joking. Actually, he wanted to talk about the Lai sect. He really needs the help of a strong side in the heavenly city. Lee, most likely, has already realized that in the current state the mayor will not live long. When he dies, the heavenly city will change dramatically. As the ruler of the city guarding these lands, the old man does not want Tianyun to be captured by outside forces. Yunmu apologizes and says that Lai Zong is an ordinary little sect. The guy doesn't think they can help them in any way. The old man calls the guy to come closer and is going to say something in his ear. Yunmu approaches and lowers down a little to hear the man better. The mayor says he has heard that the Lai sect doesn't really exist. Hearing this, Yunmu jumps back and asks how he found out about it. The guy worries that the old man may be aware of some of his secrets. Now the guy doesn't know what he's going to do. Perhaps the threat will try to force Lee to do something for him. The old man tells the girl that she shouldn't hear their conversation with the guy. Therefore, he asks his daughter to leave them alone. The man starts coughing violently. The girl worries about him and says that he needs to rest. But he says it doesn't matter anymore because he won't last long anyway. When the girl leaves, the man assures the guy that he is not going to offend him. Therefore, the experiences are simply groundless. The mayor invites Yuma to sit next to him. Lee thinks for a while, but then decides that come what may. The guy sits down next to the old man. He asks him how he knows that the Lai Zong sect does not exist. The man laughs and says he just assumed it, and Lee gave himself away by his reaction. His people searched for any information about the Lai Zong sect, but they didn't find anything. Then the man wondered if she really exists. Besides, the old man knows that there is no sage's blood in Yunmu. To persuade the guy to cooperate with them and force him to make contact with other sects, of course, will not work. The old man promises that he won't tell anyone the truth about the Lai Zong sect, so he asks the guy to join him. Yunmu doesn't understand why the man is confusing him. Haven't they already found out that the Lai Zong sect is a fake? If a guy joins them, it won't change anything and no one will become stronger. The old man says it doesn't matter if this sect exists or not. In fact, the truth has no meaning in solving such issues. While Yunmu is thinking, the old man hands him something and says that the guy can take it. It's jade. The old man says that Yuer is a very nice girl. She's an orphan. When he met her on the street, she was much thinner than he was at the moment. The man adopted the girl, and for this she is still trying to repay him. According to the mayor, Lai is a very capable young man, and he wants to entrust Yuer to someone like a guy. That's the only way he'll be able to do it for her. He just wants a quiet death. The guy looks at him smiling and says that, in other words, the old man wants Yunmu to become his son-in-law. Well, then he is also waiting for a dowry along with the bride, because being a son-in-law is not an easy thing at the moment. But the old man just walks away silently. At this time, Yuer approaches Lai and asks if they are finished. The guy hugs the girl and says they're done. She asks what Lai's father said, but Yunmu doesn't think he should tell her, so the guy says it was just a conspiracy between two men. Yuer asks Lai Yunmu if he has agreed to join them. The guy can't give an exact answer yet, because he hasn't decided yet. Yunmu twirls the jade pendant that the mayor gave him on his finger. Seeing him, the girl is surprised to ask what the pendant is doing with the guy. Lee tells the girl that her father gave him this thing. He asks what is wrong with this pendant, and what is the use of it at all. Yuer shows him the exact same pendant. If you connect them, it will be the runic key of the 7th dimension. When the two amulet holders reach transcendence, the key will direct them to reveal the main secret. The girl tells Lee to handle the amulet carefully, and never tell anyone that he has this thing. Otherwise, the hunt will begin for the guy. Yuer wanted to add something else, but then changed her mind, turned around and walked on. Lee never understood what it was. The system notifies the guy that the Shadow Queen has successfully copied the cultivation of foreign realms and awakened a holy talent, an excellent killing technique, a secret technique of the sacred realm. If Lee wants to use this power, he needs to give the Shadow Queen a lot of free points. Lee asks to give everything he has in stock. The system fulfills his requirement. When Yunmu and Yuer enter the room, there's a guy waiting for them. In his hands he holds a glass with a drink and says that he has been waiting for them for a long time. Lee sees this guy for the first time, so he asks the girl who he is and if she knows him at all. The guy explains that he is just a second-level sect member supporting Chu King Yang. His name is Wang Tianba. Wang addresses Yunmu as a representative of the Laizong sect. It seems to him that the ruler of the heavenly city is completely confused. So many brave kids have been meeting on their way lately. The Western commander advises Wang Tianba to watch his language. How dare he speak like that about the ruler? Does he really want to part with his life? Besides, Brother Lai has not joined the heavenly city yet. Wang asks if it's really that bad that Li hasn't joined them yet. The guy turns to Yuer and says that she can't even handle this little thing. Wang adds that the girl has always been inferior in intelligence to her brother divided by. He believes that it is easier for women to lure a young guy into a sect by taking advantage of their charm and attractiveness. Yunmu gets tired of listening to such words in the direction of the girl, so he decides to intervene. With a little impudence, the guy throws his legs on the table and asks Van why he stinks so much from his mouth. Has no one taught him to brush his teeth? Lai continues by saying that most likely it's because Wang Tianba is a complete idiot. Wang says that the Laizong sect seems to think a lot of themselves, because the guy is here on bird rights. Since they were talking about propriety, Wang decided to ask Li how he thought it was decent behavior for an outsider to interfere in a conversation between two representatives of the heavenly city. Lai then adds that from today, as a representative of the Lai sect, he officially joins the heavenly city. Van asks again if the guy has decided to join them for sure, to which Li replies that today he talked with the ruler of the heavenly city and he seemed to him a good man. Wang says, since everyone is here now, does Yunmu want to introduce himself in detail? He would love to hear something about the Li family. Li decides to deliberately switch to an aggressive tone with the interlocutor and asks if he has decided to run into trouble. Wang replies that he just doesn't know yet if they will be able to get along with the senior members of the Lai sect. After all, in the end, the whole family will join the heavenly city, not just Yunmu. A voice appears in Li's head again and tells him what is waiting for him. Wang Tianba continues and says, as far as he knows, such things still require the personal consent of the clan elder. Wang thinks that sounds pretty reasonable. Yunmu agrees and says he will do it. This answer was clearly not expected by the opponents. After learning that they have the opportunity to meet Lai Zong in person, they hurry to prepare the car for departure. Yunmu asks what kind of car they have and what year. And also the guy asks to help him prepare 3 incense. When Li's request is fulfilled, he takes the incense and starts dancing with them. The others think it's some kind of ritual dance. Wang starts laughing and asks what era the guy is from and when was the last time he saw someone dancing and singing with incense. During the dance, a portal opens and Li puts his hand in there. A young girl, Lai Long, appears from there. Yunmu introduces her as the youngest daughter of the Lai family. A special cultivation technique is used here. The dragon thinks it's a special power of the Li family. The girl was introduced as a junior student, but the guy understands that the combat power she possesses is simply incredible. The girl did not move from her place, as she had already struck a blow to Tianba, from which he fell. Lai says that Wang probably begged her so pitifully that her sister decided not to waste even a small part of her strength on him. The guy says he's very grateful for that. Li expresses congratulations to his sister for such hard work, bowing in a bow. At this moment, Yunmu realizes that all his empty glasses have gone to the Shadow Queen, so this performance with his sister has cost the guy dearly. The rest of the sect members bowed down before him, believing in all this. The Western commander says that now that the Li family has agreed to join them, they will be able to repel any attacks without any problems, and continue the game started by the Musicians Guild. Yunmu says that since his family has agreed to side with Heavenly City, he suggests that everyone go back to the previous conversation. The Heavenly Rebel assures that breaking promises is not in their style, so Li cannot worry about this. Since it's already quite late, the guy is offered to stay the night. He will be given a free room where he can rest properly. The ruler of the Heavenly family is really a peculiar man. Yunmu is wished a good rest and left alone, when suddenly someone from the shadows shouts, "Hello, uncle." Li jumps up from fear. When he turns on the light, two twin girls appear in front of him. They're maids. Both praise each other for being the best maids in the manor. The girls are standing in the pose of a deer ding jai. The older twin has blonde hair, and the younger one has blue. The girls say that the mistress sent them here to help her uncle get settled. Yunmu starts shouting for them to take back their words, because no one allowed them to call him that. But the girls tell the uncle not to pretend, since the lady arranged for him to spend the night in her boudoir. Who else should I call him? While Li tries to explain that there was nothing like that, the twins take off his clothes. He doesn't understand why they do it, but the girls say it's to help their uncle take a warm bath. Thus, Yunmu finds himself in a bathtub with two beauties. Moreover, they join him and start watering with water. At one point, the guy realizes that, as a man, he can't stand it anymore, so he asks the girls to leave him alone, because he can take care of himself. But the twins say that they are not going to obey the guy, since they received an order from the mistress, and they are not going to violate it. One of the twins leans over the guy's ear and says that the mistress asked them to serve her uncle well. Suddenly Li realizes what they mean, but it's getting too late. The girls take off their towels and no longer accept objections. A little later, Li is already sitting on the couch and is going to have a serious conversation. He asks the twins where their mistress is, but you don't have to wait long, as Yue herself appears in the doorway. Li had assumed that she was hiding somewhere here. The guy asks what she wanted to prove by this. Yue replies that she just wanted to check something. Yunmu answers why she needed to check on him. The girl says that, as Li already knows, the jade pendant is the key to the secret kingdom, the secret of which is equal in power to God himself. And this secret realm will enable Yunmu to open the 7th dimension. In other words, the guy will get a chance to become a real god. Lai already knows that even people like Xian Zhu were only able to condense 7 planets. But there is still a long way to go before the title of a true god. Now the girl thinks that Li is able to imagine what the true value and power of these pendants is. But now Yunmu wants to know what this information has to do with his verification. Besides, since this thing is so good, why give it to him or use it against a guy who is considered a bad guy in local circles? Yue explains that in order to open the secret realm, 2 jade pendants need to be combined when both reach the peak of enlightenment. Otherwise, nothing will come out. The girl says that paired cultivation is needed here. Yunmu clarifies whether Yue has the same pair cultivation that he just thought about. Li grins and asks what they are waiting for then. He says that the girl should not think that he is a little flower, not capable of such a thing. No need to feel sorry for him. Yue starts waving her arms and shouting that she is not ready for this at all. After that, Yunmu simply removes the amulet and gives it to the girl, saying that he returns it to her. Yue did not expect this. Lai says that the ruler of the heavenly city left it for the girl. The girl asks why he does it, because he knows what this pendant is for. Li knows and understands that the opportunity to get into the secret kingdom is very tempting. But he is not one of those who will agree to a marriage of convenience. One day she will meet a decent man, fall in love with him and make an informed choice. Yue asks if Yunmu hates her. Li said that, at first, he really thought of the girl as one big problem, but he doesn't hate her at all. It's just that the guy hasn't thought about getting married yet and hopes that in the future he will meet someone he really loves, and his partner will reciprocate, and they will be able to plunge into the happiness that belongs only to the two of them. Of course, Lee sometimes thinks that he may not meet his love. These thoughts make him sad. Yunmu is sure that one day, just by looking at this person, he will understand that he is special. That's what he's been looking for all his life. Then Lee will be able to get down on one knee and ask the girl he loves to spend the rest of their lives with him. And then, they will grow old and be together until the very end. The guy says that the girl should keep a good eye on this jade pendant, so that one day she will give it to the most precious person in her life. Then the guy says that he will wait for news from her and leaves, because the girl knows how to contact him if something happens. The girl grabs his jacket and asks where he is going. Lee replies that he is on his way to a wildlife camp in Sunset Town. Yor says they have their own teleportation system at home. The girl will take Lee to her. This will save him from a whole bunch of problems with moving. He thanks Yu for that. When the guy teleports, the girl falls to the floor and starts crying, calling Yuna a complete fool. In the wildlife camp, they notice some movement on the teleportation array. When Lee finally teleports, the guards point a gun at the guy and tell him not to move. Since this is a military teleportation system, there was no notification about the use of the system. One of the guards asks the guy not to give him any reason to shoot at him. Yunmu looks at the man's badge and realizes that the captain of the squad is Guangyang-chan. Lee had once seen something similar while working with his father. The guy decides to introduce himself and shows his combat badge. Then he asks to prepare a month's supply of food for him. No less. An order is received to quickly collect provisions. The guy is offered to spend the night in the camp, as it is already late. But Lee is in a hurry for an urgent task. Yunmu is interested in how things have been going in the camp lately. The man says that everything is unchanged. Armed soldiers patrol the territory around the clock. They are always ready to fight in case of potential danger. After all, if they relax even for a little while, they may lose their lives. Now Lee understands what kind of life his father lived. The guy has brought the collected provisions. He thanks them and sets off. Before that, the guy gave Uncle Wu a crystal, saying that it was a very valuable material. A man works every day to earn money and buy food for himself and his brothers, so the crystal will help him pay the expenses. When Yunmu meets a monster on his way, he realizes that it would be better to listen to the old man and stay overnight in the camp. It's good that the guy has the wind wings of a real 6-meter creature wind zones. However, Lee has no idea how they should work. With grief in half, he somehow succeeds, after which Yunmu grows wings.